Good afternoon, everybody. Ladies and gentlemen. Ladies and gentlemen, good afternoon, everyone. Can I kindly ask you to take your seat? Thank you so much. We're going to start the event. Thank you for kindly taking your seat. Thank you.
Chers amis,
dear friends,
chers collègues et chers amis,
dear colleagues, dear friends, we will try to start on time since there are some current events happening in France.
je voudrais en profiter.
I'd like to take this opportunity to welcome all of the French delegation and all of the colleagues from Renew Europe who are here, all of the colleagues from the European Parliament and all of the delegations. Thank you for being here at this first global forum. And welcome to everyone. Welcome to those who have traveled from the member states. I'd particularly like to thank them, the representatives of our 40 political parties, 26 different nationalities. We are very proud to have them here in this hemicycle. I'd like to have a round of applause for all of them.
Bon, d'abord, c'est la preuve que cette...
First of all, this is the proof that this House is open to everyone. It is also the continuity of our conviction at Renew Europe. Renew Europe is policy being made here in the institutions, at the Parliament, in this hemicycle, but also through dialogue with all Europeans, intellectuals, national elected officials, local officials, advocates, journalists, citizens. It's also our approach. And every year, Renew Europe has had an event organized to reflect politically together, to take a step back and look at European political life, to highlight texts, new ideas, proposals in this European Parliament, including in member states that we belong to. Every year, this reflection is launched. In previous years, we were able to debate on equality between men and women with the Simone Veil Pact. We discussed European sovereignty, and in this last year of this term, I felt it was essential to talk about the role of Europe in the world. In France, usually we tend to say that if you don't take care of politics, politics will take care of you. That is a line that we share with our advocates from our different political parties to ensure that they are involved. And Europe must participate in world policy, otherwise the world will decide. We have seen the foreign interference in various cases. They're a reality. We've seen the war in Ukraine, the war in the Near East, the problems of democracy in Africa, the difficulties of supply chains, including in Europe, disloyal competition from some of our partners outside of the European Union. All of that is also Europe's business. More than ever, Europe must be part of the world. This should be a serious topic of the upcoming European campaigns, and there is a lot holding us back. Sometimes it's because of ideology. Nationalists say we should turn inward. Supposed patriotism sometimes hides behind these arguments to say that they like Europe, love Europe yet less than their countries. And we are here to say that there are those who say that we can live happily by turning inward. That is something that we have heard from nationalists. The role of Europe in the world is an existential question for us, in my view, in our democracy. It's also a response to the difficulties of our fellow citizens. The victory of Ukraine is the promise of democracy. Defending European values is a promise also for security at the European level. United European diplomacy is the promise of stability of the global order based on law. Law here in Renew Europe is an important part of our political DNA. United diplomacy and fair European policies with fair exchanges. That's also the problem of employment and prosperity. And that also is part of our economic model. The enlargement strategy, that's also an important aspect to ensure the unity of our continent. There's been a lot of debate in that area, but Europe has found its solutions in crises. As if nothing had changed since Kissinger said, I'm sure we've all heard this phrase, Europe, what phone number do I dial to reach Europe? Since that time, Brussels has had its effect, and you know that Europe has a geopolitical identity. Our unprecedented and exemplary reaction to the Russian invasion of Ukraine is the proof of this, and I'd like to congratulate the European Parliament, but also the MEPs from Renew who worked to ensure the unity of this hemicycle where you've worked for weeks upon weeks to continue to support our colleagues in Ukraine and the people of Ukraine. Thank you for your work. It was highly intense, politically speaking, and this legislative term allowed us to show that this Parliament could be united behind the Ukrainian cause. There was a time when European naivete seemed dead and old habits have reappeared. It is therefore our role as Democrats and Liberals to come back to the fight, to change Europe, to make it stronger, to convince others that our model is current. I very much look forward to hearing all of the conversations and debates that will be held on this question of geopolitical Europe. So I wish you an excellent debate and discussions in this Hemicycle, which is already full, as we can see, and I welcome our moderator, Thierry Schultz, and our first participants from our political parties for a first set of exchanges with our European leaders. Thank you. Good luck with the forum. Have a good debate, have a good discussion, and have a good campaign for those who have already begun. Thank you.
Nowhere in the world do we have such an efficient organization as the European Union, which brought us peace, prosperity, and which is dealing with environmental and economic challenges.
However, a series of crises, from the COVID pandemic to Russia's illegal war of aggression against Ukraine or increased tensions in the Middle East, have shaken our continent.
These developments have shown that a stronger and more assertive geopolitical European Union is needed.
A more sovereign European Union will increase our influence and ensure more security for EU citizens in an increasingly fragmented global world order.
Russia's war of aggression against Ukraine has never been solely about Ukraine. It's also about the international rules-based order and the security architecture of Europe. We should work on our long-term defense of Europe.
Inflation, energy prices, strategic dependencies, and international competition push us to react with strength and determination to restore our industrial competitiveness. We are building a more modern, digitally savvy, net-zero industry.
There is no other collective effort as demanding as addressing the climate crisis. In Europe, we already act with an ambitious Green Deal. Our message is, not only must the economy fit into environmental boundaries, but it should use the climate challenge to become more innovative, resilient, and forward-looking.
Open, fair, and assertive trade has always been in our DNA. But trade is not only about economics. It is also a powerful geopolitical level that enables the EU to shape a world in which our values are permanently anchored.
While promoting open strategic autonomy, we fight to make the world a better place with the protection of fundamental rights and the defense of the environment. Regaining our sovereignty, enhancing our defense capabilities, fostering our competitiveness, while addressing the digital and environmental challenges ahead. These are our core objectives for stronger global Europe.
Karto.
Sammen.
Zajedno.
Lachele.
Zusammen.
Some.
Together,
We will
Renew Europe.
Hello, everyone. Thank you, Stéphane, for the welcome, and a Happy New Year to everyone joining us here in person in the Hemicycle here in the European Parliament, as well as to those of you joining us online. It's a great way to start the new year with new ideas, and as you'll hear from some of our speakers, they think we really need them. So we're looking forward to a very lively debate today, but I would also, at this point, like to thank two very special guests who made it here at the last minute, wasn't even warned they were coming. Vice President of ALDE from Ukraine, Kira Rudik, and her Chief of Staff, Violeta Stefanishyna. Pashutina, I'm sorry, Violeta. Thank you, Kira. So not only are these ladies living through unbearable circumstances at home, but they made the grueling journey to be with us here today, and I'm sure that they will have some valuable contributions to make to our discussions later in the program. So think about this. Exactly 5 months from today, June 9th, we will be wrapping up elections for the next European Parliament. 5 months is not very long. And we will be facing challenges then that could not have even been imagined the last time this massive election cycle was held. Think about it, 5 years ago, COVID hadn't even happened. What a lifetime ago that seems. Now heading into this round, we're facing an unrelenting, brutal war next door, another one in the Middle East. But not only that, there are intense political battles of values in all of your countries, some of them more challenging than others. And so we're facing so many questions as we head into these elections. Again, as I say, just 5 months from today, and we're going to be discussing all of those issues here today with our distinguished speakers, but also with those of you here in the room. I very much want to bring in your views. And so with each of our panels, we hope to have time to take some questions from those of you in the audience who would very much like to hear what our speakers have to say about the questions in your own countries and those facing us here in Brussels. So to start off, we are going to have what we're calling the Voices of Europe Roundtable. And these are speakers who are invited to share their views in a very strict 2 minutes each about the future of Europe and how to make Europe a more effective geopolitical actor on the world stage. With that, I would like to call up our first group of 5 speakers. We're going to be bringing them up. First, Ilhan Küçük. He's an MEP and co-president of ALDE, MRF Bulgaria. Malik Osmani, also an MEP. Popularity contest here. And the lead candidate for VVD in the Netherlands. Anna Donat, also MEP, lead candidate for Momentum in Hungary. Hilde Woutmans, lead candidate for Open VLD here in Belgium. And Helmut Brandstatter, an MP for NEOS in Austria. This is our first round. Wait, whoops. Did you have a microphone on one of these chairs? There you go. Okay, so they will be passing the microphone, and we will have a clock ticking down their 2 minutes. It feels like a variety show. We don't get voted, but I'm sure applause will be in order. Okay, do we have our clock? If not, it will be more of an honor system. Okay, there we go. Okay, Ilhan.
Well,
there you go. Oops, I'll give you 6 extra seconds.
This is quite a competition among so experienced politicians here. But I'm grateful today that we have a full room of people. It shows the unity of Renew Group, and with that unity we can achieve a lot, believe me, Teri. But also I'm grateful that we didn't create another sofa gate here. So there's a chair for everyone. Listen, I was part of the exercise called Conference on the Future of Europe. It was a great listening exercise, but I'm not satisfied completely, because the Conference on the Future of Europe came with very concrete ideas on how we can reform European Union for better. And those ideas are just ideas. They are not in action. And what I'm still asking the representatives of the European Council to make sure that ideas of the citizens to be implemented. I know many of my colleagues will tell, hey, you want to talk about enlargement, but at the same time we have a lot of challenges ahead of us. And they are right in doing so, in telling me that. But in order to make European Union credible and stronger, we need to do both. We need to reform the European Union in order to be a significant geopolitical player. And for that, we have to abolish the unanimity rule. Second one, we have to be much more serious when it comes to enlargement, based on merits and also based on our geostrategic importance. It's an excellent news from last year that was given green light to Ukraine, Georgia, and Moldova. But I want the European Union of the next generation, the reform one, to fulfill the expectations of the European citizens. Thank you.
Thank you, Ilhan. And that very ominous ticking is a nice sound effect here. Okay, Malik, the gauntlet has been cast. Yeah. 2-minute ideas.
Well, I would like to propose today eine Strategiewende. Because the economic, military, and institutional domination of the Western democratic model is being challenged. Liberal democracy and free market capitalism have not brought history to an end, but we are confronted with alternative autocratic models. 3 global blocs are emerging: the autocrats, the free democracies, and those who have not chosen sides yet. An autocratic bloc of China, Russia, Iran, and their proxies is increasingly manifesting itself. It threatens global peace and stability. And we, as liberals and democrats, have a fundamental duty to protect freedom and democracy. While different liberal and democratic values are in our DNA. And we have to take a stand to fight for our principles within the Union, but also in the world. Russia's brutal war against Ukraine is the ultimate test of European resilience in unity. Far-reaching globalization has painfully exposed that we are too dependent on others when it comes to energy, technology, and finance, especially in times of crisis. In addition, the decades-long decline of European defense has painfully weakened our military. We must build back better and invest in European defense. Only a future-proof European Union that is able to operate independently and firmly is ready to play its role and protect its interests. In other words, a sovereign Europe. The next term, after the elections in June, must be all about strategic sovereignty. And I therefore call for eine Strategiewende. Thank you very much.
Malik, 5 seconds over, but we'll give him a break.
Oh, 5 seconds is 5 seconds.
Don't stop. It's true. Okay, dynamic presentation from one of the countries I'll admit I had in mind when I was talking about challenges at home. The uphill battle there in the Netherlands. Oh, I feel like a commentator, a sports commentator now. And Anna is up next. Anna, take it away from Hungary.
Thank you so
much.
Well, sitting from this perspective, it's amazing. It's every MEP's dream to see this room this full and talk to you. And it reminds me when I became a member of this parliament, I had the feeling that now I have a chance to become an advocate and an activist for a better European future. And this is why we are working for. I was full of big hopes, and I joined a group called Renew Europe. So everything was given to do it. So, and then I realized, meanwhile, the last 4.5 years, that there are 2 types of group of people here in this building. The one who became cynicists and the others who became idealists. But I think there is a third ground, a middle ground, and this is what Renew Europe offers. We call ourselves Renew Europe. This has to be a realistic ground, and this realization also leads me to start for looking for newer, not just newer issues, but newer tools. So this is why I have recently launched a new European citizen initiative to call for a fully fledged European Environmental Authority, because our generation is the last who has the freedom of choice to act upon these issues. So it's a duty, it's not even a choice for our political generation. And I think that in parallel of our previous years of advocacy for extending the European Public Prosecutor's Office mandate to include environmental crimes, this marks a critical step in addressing the complex cross-border nature of these crimes. So, hand in hand, to ensure effective enforcement of this regulation, the establishment of a fully fledged European Environmental Authority alongside the expansion of the EPPO is essential. And what if it's not these solutions are going to provide for the future a better, a greener, a just future for our children, as meanwhile we are renewing Europe, like providing something for the next generation.
Bravo, Anna. Okay, Hilda, high bar so far. All right.
Well,
Hold on. All right, let's go.
Okay, well, thank you very much and welcome here all. And first of all, a very good 2024. Like you said, it's amazing to see you all sitting here, but it's especially amazing because I feel the liberal vibe. I see a lot of time when the plenary is full of people, but I never have this feeling. So, Stéphane, actually, I hope that after 5 months, we have this parliament filled with liberals after the election. That should be our goal. And I'm convinced, yes. And I'm convinced, colleagues, I'm convinced that we can do that. Why? Because we are the only ones who have a real European program. We are the most pro-European group here in this house. We believe that Europe is the solution and not the problem. Not Europe how it works now, but Europe how we want it to work. Like Ilian said, go away with the unanimity. Enlarge Europe. Not too quick. We have to deepen it, change it a little bit, and then take other countries with it. But also with a real, you said defense union, no. With a real European army. That's what we need. With a real migration, a real European migration policy. Not Orban, who decides who comes in Europe. We as Europe have to decide. So European migration, European defense, abolish unanimity. Make a real foreign minister of Europe. I like Borrell, where is Javier? I like Mr. Borrell, but he has no power. We need a real Minister of Foreign Affairs of Europe. That's what we need. So the only thing we have to believe in is ourselves. Europe is our future and our only future, and it will be a liberal Europe. Thank you very much.
Okay. I'm smiling. I'm writing down lots of ideas to ask in my later panels that we've had these questions already posed, and what does Margrethe Vestager think about these kind of things? So I will be asking. Yes, for later in the panels, in the political panels, I will be asking some of the questions you're bringing up. Yeah, good ideas.
Very good, very good.
Okay, Helmut.
But I can give you more ideas, eh?
I'll be taking
I'm not
questions
finished,
from
but
the
I only got 2 minutes, eh?
Okay, I'll be watching you, Hilde. Okay, Helmut, take it away.
Thank you. Dear friends, short look back. About 40 years ago, I was sitting in an office here, not far from here, working for the European Commission as a stagiaire. Even as an Austrian, I had the chance. And sometimes we were looking back that our fathers probably were shooting each other, and we built the new Europe. Today we have new challenges because Putin's war showed us, first of all, that militarily we are in danger, but it's more than that. It's also a hybrid war against our society, against our freedom, against our way, how we want to live. So first of all, yes, I support that. I'm very much in favor of a European army, and I said it as an Austrian from a neutral country. We need it because our security depends on common defense, and we don't know what's happening in America within the next month or the next years. But that's not all. We also need to fight the hybrid war. And we know there are these right-wing parties. They are financed by Putin. They are organized by Putin. Even some conservatives in Great Britain were paid by him in order to organize the Brexit. So here we also have to fight. We have to show it and we have to tell it to our people that our way of living is in danger. And that's what my responsibility as probably a little older one here is. I want to have the same opportunities we had for the next generation. And that's our job, to work for the young generation, to work for the next generation, that they have the same possibilities. Plus, enlargement. Ilhan said enlargement, and I think it's important. But it's important, first of all, because those people there, those kids, they should have the same opportunities as our kids. But it's also a question of defense. It's also a question of security. Because as we know from Republika Srpska and other areas, they are also fighting our European Union, our freedom, our way of living. So let's do this together as liberals, and I'm really looking forward. Thank you very much.
Okay, I wish I could ask you questions, but I can't. That is our first round, and this is now we will head into the second round of ideas. Very much fueling the. I know. You know, if it were up to me, we'd be talking a lot. Thank you very much, Leva. Yep. Oh, it's okay. He's an MP and the lead candidate for USR, former Vice Prime Minister of Romania. Emma Wissler, an MEP and the lead candidate for the Centre Party in Sweden. There goes my chair. Morten, my notes. Morten Lykkegaard, an MEP and lead candidate for Venstre in Denmark. Gerben Jan Gebrandi, lead candidate for D66 and a former MEP from the Netherlands. Nicola Danti, an MEP from Italia Viva, from Italy. And I believe Nicola is going to speak Italian, so if I'm not mistaken. So everybody have your interpretation headsets ready. And Imanol Pradales, a regional minister and lead candidate for the regional election for PNV, Spain. And here. There you go. And everyone has a microphone on their chairs. Okay, same as the previous round, high energy. Okay, we're going to get the clock up, and Dan, you will start. Okay.
Thank you, dear friends. I very much appreciate and welcome this Renew Europe Global Forum. I want to take you back in prehistory, sort of, the year 1998. I was just a young and widely idealistic law graduate. And of all the events of 1998, Kosovo War, Euro adoption, starting of anti-vaccine movement, I will pick one which determined really my whole career. European Commission published its first report on Romania's progress towards EU accession. I became a lawyer specializing in pre-accession funds and played my part towards my country's European integration in a few years. As you may know, Romania joined and Bulgaria joined EU in 2007 with a special clause. The CVM was meant to ensure that judicial reforms continue and rule of law becomes the norm. I stand before you today to stress that rule of law is still the most important battle of our generation. We must defend it, actively fight for it, and see it as one of Europe's most important export goods for the world. I therefore salute the past decisive actions of EU Commission to withhold funds to some member states on rule of law grounds. But I also criticize the mechanism of being too lenient at times. You see, kitchen table conversation, inflation, cost of living, health, education are important for all European citizens, but all and any of them are dwarfed in a union where corruption is seen as no longer quite a problem, or because of different crises, the undermining rule of law is starting to be conceived. We all suffer alongside our brothers and sisters in Ukraine and support their righteous cause. But the war cannot be an excuse for turning blind eyes to states that on one hand help Ukraine, but on the other hand are weakening the rule of law. 2024 is a milestone. It will be to us to show whether politics nowadays is ambitious to be or ambitious to do, as Monet said. Thank you.
Thank you, Dan. More or less to time. Okay, Emma.
So, hi colleagues, I'm the youngest member of this group today, and you might not believe it, but I will not retire until 2062. And it seems like a long time, but 2062, think about it. This is a time where temperature will be extreme. Extreme weather will be the new normal. It looks like we will not have glaciers other than on the poles, and the sea level will be meters higher than is today if we do nothing. So what makes me so frustrated, colleagues, is when people are saying, pushing the issues to future generations. Because climate change is the issue of my generation, our generation. We are the ones that needs to act. And that's why I'm here, and that's why I'm running for this election again. I'm an energy engineer, so then let's talk a little bit on the energy issue, because the climate issue is an energy issue, and the energy issue is a security issue. And what happened with our energy policy is that our gas policies failed. Since the annexation of Crimea, we answered with the energy union, but the energy union made us increase our gas use in Europe, it increased our import of gas to Europe, and it increased our dependency of Russian gas in Europe. Europe's gas policy has failed us, and that's what we need to fix the next mandate. The energy policy is our security policy, and that's also our climate policy. So that's what I will be fighting for a lot, and that's why I hope you will also be fighting with me in our generation. And we have to defend what we did in Fit for 55. Because if Trump decides, if right-wing decides, if populists decides, climate policy will be dismantled. Look at what's happening in Sweden at the moment, when they decide there will be no climate progression. So we need to defend Fit for 55 and the climate agenda that we're having. And thank you for fighting with me.
Thank you, Emma. Okay, Morten. Yep. Oh, there you go.
So here we go. Okay. Hello, friends. Good to be here. I'm Morten Lokkegaard, representing Venstre from Denmark. I've been here almost too long, 15 years, so to speak. But I'll take another round, and I think I do it because we need it as liberals in Europe as we look into a very defining year, 2024. Politically speaking, not at least because of the flood of elections that we are facing all around the globe. So what will be our special mission as Europe? Of course, to stand together, to fight for victory in Ukraine, for climate all around the world, and also for the digital transformation, of course, with AI and so on and so forth. But all this, friends, all this takes unity. But in order to keep unity, we also need to keep our citizens on board. This would take trust, and trust is about making the system reliable and fair, delivering growth and prosperity. And here, dear friends, we can do better. So today, too many member states avoid enforcing EU rules or even raise national barriers when it comes to trade. Lack of enforcement prevents the EU from reaching its economical potential, and it risks undermining our ambitious climate and energy targets. And last but not least, some of my colleagues have already touched upon this, we cannot expand our union with new member until we have a proper enforcement and implementation of common EU rules. It sounds a bit boring, but it's absolutely key, colleagues. What is needed then? Concretely, Renew Europe calls for the next Commission to appoint an enforcement commissioner. Additionally, we also propose a climate and environmental task force which will monitor if member states fulfill their climate and energy targets. Otherwise, we will end up doing too little, too late, and lose the trust of our citizens and businesses. It's time to move forward. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Morten. Jan.
Yes, thank you very much. And what a wonderful way to come back to Brussels and to see this Hemicycle fully packed with liberal friends. Wonderful. I would like to take you to the brilliant autobiography of Stefan Zweig, Die Welt von Gestern, in which he describes the cheerful atmosphere in the streets of Austria-Hungary because of the upcoming war after the assassination of Prince Franz Ferdinand in Sarajevo in 1914. Zweig himself is deeply depressed because of the political events in Europe. But the general public is excited. Finally, after 50 years, a war. Young men in bright-colored uniforms with flowers in their hair marching to the front, joyfully applauded by the public. But most of them never returned. And the few who did were mentally and physically damaged. Zweig believed the ecstasy of the people came from the fact that the previous war against Prussia had taken place 50 years ago. People simply forgot the terrible atrocities of war. And I'm afraid history is currently repeating itself. The one and only objective of European integration after World War II was no more war. Integration and cooperation were just the means. To me, the uprise in nationalism, patriotism, and the political extreme right is an echo from Stefan Zweig's summer of 1914. We seem to have forgotten, after 80 years, how destructive nationalism can be in Europe. Therefore, I strongly believe that we should reinvigorate the concept of European integration, that we should set the next necessary steps to make the EU stronger and more responsive to today's dangerous world. Peace and prosperity can only be guaranteed by a further integrated Europe. We can't afford wasting time.
And that
is the agenda for the coming years.
Almost.
Thank you.
There we go. Thank you. Thank you, Nikolai.
Voglio ringraziare intanto.
May I thank Stefan?
Be able to hear his remarks. So remember, if you don't speak Italian.
Ok.
Everyone ready?
It's okay, it's okay.
Okay.
Grazie, Stéphane.
So thank you, Stéphane, for organising this wonderful, very important event here today. We've got 180 decisive days until the European elections to get a different Europe and try and achieve a different Europe. We have before us a strong right wing growing right across Europe. I'm speaking as someone from a country where over the last few days, once again, we've seen people giving the fascist salute in the headlines. We need to keep a careful eye on this because it's an extremely dangerous development. At the same time, on the other side, we have a left which can't see its essential values coming through and is giving way to populism increasingly. Now, we play a central role here in the European Parliament. We have to be those who could bring about rebalance within the House. I think that the reforms we need to bring about have been mentioned by previous speakers, starting by revisiting the rule on unanimity. All the other points you've mentioned are pertinent too. But first and foremost, we have to make sure that we recognise the primacy of politics. If politics is no longer seen as the way to solve people's problems altogether, coming up with a common response to the needs of the suffering middle classes who are losing out as a result of globalization and economic crisis, we are a reference point for them in the world of politics. We need to grasp this great opportunity and act on this huge hope. In the next parliamentary term, the European Parliament has problems it can only solve if we work together. Today's problems are ones that are too big for us to deal with individually. So you need a strong force such as Renew Europe to fight across the board, right across Europe, so that this Parliament can play an effective role.
Thank you very much, Nikolai. Emmanuel, wrap us up our round.
Hi friends, Emmanuel Pradales from the Basque National Party. As you know, we are a founder of the European Democratic Party and one of the few centenarian political parties in Europe. I would like to speak about three different messages. First, democracy. I think that we have to reinforce democracy and democratic values in Europe, and especially in the next European Parliament. We have to combat growing populism, both from right-wing or left-wing parties, which is trying to prevent us from making forward progress in our common project. Second message, competitiveness and social Europe. We must foster our competitiveness in leading sectors for the future, combining industrial effort, reindustrialization, technological formation, innovation, and so on with sustainability, but also with moving towards a social Europe, real solidarity with generations, significant progress in the field of equality and social justice. This is my second message. And the third one, as a Basque National Party, I think that we have to go towards grant more competencies in the Union, make progress in greater citizen participation, transparency, and so on, but also deepening our model of multi-level governance. And that means that integrating local and regional powers and also national realities such our reality in the Basque country. And I would like to finish with a wish for the next European Parliament future. We would like to participate on an equal footing in the future of the European institutions, especially with the Basque language, our language. Thank you so much.
Okay, thank you very much. All right, thank you very much to our second round of speakers and to keeping to time for everyone. And now I know it feels very abrupt. I'm sorry, but we are going to bring up our third round of Voices of Europe now. Thank you very much. Okay, our third round. Sigurd Friis Fredriksen, the lead candidate for Radikale Denmark. Ondřej Knotek, an MEP and candidate for ANO from Czechia. Daniel Lohr, MP, former Minister of Innovation and Growth for We Are the Change Bulgaria. Elena Bonetti, an MP and former Minister of Health and Gender Equality from Italy. And João Cochim de Figueiredo, an MP and former party leader for Iniciativa Liberal, Portugal. Everyone have their mic? Okay, we'll start with you, Sigrid.
Well, it's good to be here. I'm really full of hope when I look at you, because I know that despite EU's past and present challenges, we remain united in our fight for a liberal, just, sustainable and progressive Europe. A Europe that I hold very dear. However, the invasion of Ukraine by Russia nearly 2 years ago presented a grave challenge to the very essence of Europe. And now, going into 2024, I think Putin is waiting for impatience or maybe fatigue in the West to set in. But we must honor our commitment to stand by Ukraine for as long as the war endures, support their struggle for freedom, provide care and shelter for those fleeing the war, and extend an open invitation for Ukraine to join our European family. But we can and must do more. While military, economic, and humanitarian support are crucial, solely relying on them won't win the war. Despite reductions and sanctions, oil and gas still flow into Europe and the West. We must break free from this dependency to potentially politically threaten Putin, weakening Russia on the battlefield and bolster Ukraine's fight for freedom. This will also position EU in the green technology race against the US and China. Let's stay competitive, regulate demand, reduce fossil fuel consumption, and enhance energy efficiency. Third, and finally, this strategic approach would undoubtedly make a colossal difference in addressing the climate crisis. Because while crises may seem overwhelming and sometimes even unsolvable, they also hold opportunities for the future. The promise of what we can achieve collectively fills me with hope, not only for the present state of Europe, but also for the prosperity of the future generations. Thank you.
Perfectly timed, Sigrid. Okay, Ondřej.
Very good afternoon, and it's a real pleasure to see so many friends of Europe enthusiastic in the future of Europe that is more competitive. And indeed, it's excellent timing because we are 5 months ahead of the European elections. And despite many ambitious policies, we see that Europe is slowly becoming less competitive and also less attractive for some investors, including European companies, and as well as self-sufficient. And we believe that we are able to tackle this and to catch up with other geopolitical powers. But the main need is to have a strong economy. Strong economy is base for everything. We can build capacities. We can react on global challenges. We can support our military industry, pharmaceutical industry, everything. But we must be strong economically. And why, or what could we do to be more stronger in economy? It is about the overregulation. So we believe that the European Union could breathe easier if we would have less regulations, and that companies and businesses would not need to challenge to all so many conditions. And of course, and it has been spelled already, it's about affordable energies, because European industry cannot be competitive unless we will have competitive prices of electricity. So the big two challenges for the next European Parliament, European Commission, and all in the Brussels bubble and across Europe is to find a way how to make Europe less regulated, and also how to deliver on our climate goals while offering some flexibilities to have more pragmatic energy policy. Many thanks.
Thank you. Well done, Andre. Daniel.
Thank you. It's great to be here. I'm confident that we can double our numbers in the next European Parliament. But to do that, we need to win elections. And winning the elections is all about talking to people's hearts, because people vote with their emotions. So I can offer 3 words that can be the winners for this year's European Parliament elections: prosperity, safety, and security. We owe economic prosperity to Europeans because we all know that everybody's concerned about their life. Europe loses 1 trillion euros annually from having a semi-working single market. If we can deepen this market the way Jacques Delors, may he rest in peace, gave it to us, I believe Europe's prosperity will be much bigger for all our Europeans to enjoy. Second topic, safety. We cannot not address the issue of immigration and asylum. The next European Parliament will have to rework these rules so that they're a lot more merit-based, and Europeans can be calm about their economic future as well. And finally, security. The European continent needs a lot more common security and foreign policy. This continent needs a lot more European defense, both military and industrial, and it will be our job to make it happen. All of that will only work out if we do prosperity, safety, and security while taking care of the basis of the union itself. We must expand this union to the new countries because European values are very dear for us, and we need to make sure they oppose military aggression with political expansion of this union. But we need to make this expansion affordable. We need to make sure it does not break the very European model that we want to propagate. That is our mission.
Thank you. Thank you, Daniel. Elena.
Thank you, Chair. We have experienced ongoing crises of different kinds. First, the pandemic, then the wars in Ukraine, in the Middle East, rising energy prices, inflation. The global international context is changing rapidly, and all the strategies that ensure the Europe prosperity up to now are no longer effective and risk failing. We urgently need a new strategy for defense, the economy, and the energy supply. What's more, we must play a new role in international trade and in transatlantic relations. The challenges facing us are historic. First, make community action more effective. We can achieve this, firstly, by reforming the European institutions to be closer to the citizen needs, and secondly, by reinforcing the decision-making process of central institutions without undermining resilience of individual states. Second, achieve sustainable growth and development. We need a new European industrial plan. We must guarantee common investments for energy supply and new transitions. Third, education and training of new generations. We need a common program to encourage the younger generation to take the lead to face today's rapid technological change. And finally, demographic transition. We need a shared agenda to support the aging population and to increase societal well-being. But at the same time, we must address new welfare, labor, immigration policies to increase productivity and participation in the labor market, especially for women. Either Europe will find a new common path to tackle this great transition, or it will be no more, as in the words of Mario Draghi. Forging a closer union will ultimately prove to be the only way to deliver the security and prosperity that European citizens crave. Thank you.
Thank you, Elena. Well done. And our final speaker, Joao.
Thank you, Thierry. Thank you very much. I am the last speaker. Thank you, Stéphane. It's probably a vote of confidence that you put the last speaker trying to say something meaningful over 2 minutes on priorities for Europe. And there's so much that could be said. But priorities for me means that you can't have a washing or shopping list, very, very long one. So I chose one to talk about one thing which I think is one of the root causes and sometimes also one of the root solutions for many of our problems that we've heard about here today: the rise of extremists, geopolitical weaknesses, migration, climate crisis, welfare state crisis, and the cynicism and even frustration of our fellow European citizens. And that root cause is sustainable growth, or better said, the lack of sustainable growth. That has not happened sufficiently in the past. Over the past 15 years ago, the GDP of the European Union was 10% higher than that of the United States. Today it's 20% lower, and we have doubled the population, which means we have a serious GDP per capita problem. And it's not going to get better because today we don't have the potential growth, and we don't have the capacity to make that acceleration that we would need. We only have 2 of the top 20 world companies. We only have 1 of the top 30 universities. Things are not going to look great. And the worst part of it is that this is turning Europe into a less attractive place to live and to work and to innovate. And therefore, what I think we should do is to make growth our utmost priority, because growth is not just a material priority, it's also the resources that we need for the welfare state, for industrial policy, accelerating reforms and change, and also to fund digital and climate transitions. But most importantly, growth is what makes places, regions, countries attractive to people to live in, to work in, to innovate, and to attract better investment. So liberals should choose growth as a banner. We can do it. We can start doing it in June the 9th. The future is liberal.
Thank you very much. And that wraps up our lightning rounds of new ideas for Europe. Thank you very much for giving me so much energy to head into our panels of experts now. So many ideas and so many answers that we're hoping to get. And to our audience, of course, nobody will mind if you share their ideas with the hashtag Global Europe Forum on social media, those of you watching on the live stream as well. Thank you very much to our Voices of Europe roundtable. And we will now have a little bit of shuffling of chairs, and we will start with our expert panels. And now we're moving into our discussion panels with some very distinguished speakers. And our first theme, the EU as a geopolitical actor, is a project for peace equipped for a world of war? And again, I ask the question, does it have any choice anymore? We're going to hear some very deep ideas from some of our speakers here. And again, as I say, I'm very much hoping to bring in your views from the audience. So I'm very proud to say that we're being joined remotely from Kyiv by the Deputy Prime Minister for European and Euro-Atlantic Integration, Olha Stefanishyna. And we understand that Ukraine is under a severe cyber attack today and that we may have technical difficulties. So, oh, there she is. But please bear with us if we are not able to keep the technical connection. But Madam Deputy Prime Minister, I very much hope that if we lose you technically, you will very much feel the connection from this room. Everyone is mentioning Ukraine. Everyone is talking about support for Ukraine. So if we lose the technical connection, be aware that the political and emotional connection is very much coming from here in Brussels. And now I'd like to be joined by my in-person speakers, Madam Executive Vice President, Margrethe Vestager. Marie-Agnes Strack-Zimmermann, she is chair of the Defense Committee of the German Bundestag. And Nathalie Loiseau, Chair of the Subcommittee on Security and Defense of the European Parliament. And I would say we have a gender balance problem. I love it. As someone covering security and defense for 23 of 24 hours in the day, I love this, myself personally. Okay, so we are going to start there in Kyiv. An active war zone, you're living under just relentless siege from Russia. Olha, what is your vision for the future of Europe, for European integration? This is your job, even as you have to worry about bombs falling all around you. We're very much looking forward to your remarks here to start us off.
Thank you so much, dear President, colleagues, all the Liberal family. It's a great pleasure to address you here. And I'm really sorry that I'm not able to be here physically with you, but as you say, emotionally and politically, I have this feeling that we stay connected 24/7. I have one very clear conclusion to my speech, but let me lead you to this smoothly. So let me first of all express the gratitude for the Renew Europe unwavering and steadfast support to Ukraine, for supporting unwaveringly again EU and NATO aspirations of Ukraine, and backing up this support political by real actions which we see and feel, and particularly know how strong was the voice of the Liberal family and the Liberal leaders to make the decision on starting the accession talks for Ukraine and Moldova and other enlargement countries' decisions possible. This was a very important decision, not only for my country and for the people of my country, but first and foremost for Europe itself, for European Union to be another day, the organization which confirms by actions the promises and the words. Together we share a very simple but very important principle. Our Europe is one Europe, which lies in the uniting Europe through a genuine and deep process of integration of all European countries, from east to the west and from north to the south, and which must remain a key element for our Europe and for our future. At this particular moment, it's not the matter of political strategies, or it's not the matter of division, it's the matter of survival, and it's a matter of existential transformation. We also share the vision of a strong Europe able not only to cherish the values, but also to defend the values it has been built for. Russia, as we all understand, is determined to continue the war. Its war budget has increased. Its economy has very clearly transitioned to a war footing. The alliance is being formed between North Korea, Russia, and Iran. If not defeated in Ukraine, Russia will use Ukraine's territory and resources to threaten the European states. Unfortunately, this is the reality we're living. This is the war we are fighting on. And this is the hunger appetite which has not gone anywhere. But Ukraine has clearly broken its plans and continued doing so for almost 700 days in a row, already third year in a row. It's really important that we all understand that. And when we're talking about supporting Ukraine, about building the strategy of the victory of Ukraine, it's not about Ukraine only, it's about all of us. Russia's full-scale war has already poses a direct threat to the security of EU eastern countries. In this regard, further strengthening Ukraine's defense is one of the elements of the implementation of the collective security principle, which lies also in the Article 5 of the Washington Treaty. This uncomfortable truth should not paralyze us, but should mobilize us to act. And that's why I'm using this opportunity to be very blunt and clear in where we are. I understand that all of the European leaders and European institutions and European Parliament is ahead of the new electoral and political process, as well as many countries in its individual elections. And that's why it's really important that we really stay clear and frank in where we are and what is ahead of us. Today, the war is near EU and NATO borders, not at the border. thanks to the relentless fights of Ukrainian armed forces in extremely difficult conditions. Ukraine's resilience shall not be taken for granted, as well as Russia's potential to mobilize additional resources to continue the aggression. And the Western unity and determination will be tested every day. Russia sees the benefits of a highly violent political environment and democratic countries, continuing the fatigue of Ukraine's partners. We are grateful for EU record-breaking amount of the assistance, a support to Ukraine's resilience, including financial and military assistance. These are also the solidarity lanes, which helps to export more than 110 million tons of grains and goods, 12 packages of sanctions, lifted exports quotas and tariffs, a strong support for Ukrainian business, and of course, Ukrainian people who had to save their lives escaping the war and find the shelter in European Union countries. These measures should be continued as they are key to Ukrainians' economic survival as well as its ability to fight. Ukraine is a country at war. Even though we managed to survive and stay fully operational through every day of it, still we are at war. Unfortunately, sometimes in some cabinets, people refer to forget about it as the decisions are taken. So let me remind you that some crucial decisions are on the table. First, increasing military support to Ukraine and delivering on what has been already announced and agreed. Adopting new financial instrument of 50 billion proposed for Ukraine for the next 4 years. This will ensure necessary predictability and strength in the face of a growing Russian full-scale attacks and strengthening its alliances with the other partners I've mentioned already. We of course acknowledge that it requires certain resources and efforts, and we value all the support that has been already provided. We do not take for granted any contribution of every European nation, and more importantly, incredible support of European people we enjoy and we feel. But it is important to acknowledge that through this support, Europe first and foremost secures its stability and strength. Further strengthening Ukraine defense is the most cost-efficient investment into European security. EU strategic compass is clear in this regard. It identifies the need to invest more and better in defense based on the current future threats and challenges. And we see visible progress in this regard, as well as more coherence in the EU defense landscape. We see potential and opportunities in the EU defense initiatives. We are conscious that the use of those opportunities, Ukraine needs to catch up with the allies and some technologies, align its regulatory framework, and build up capital stock to modernize the industrial base even despite the wartime. We follow the development of the European defense industry strategy. We believe that it will benefit from the reflection on Ukraine's needs and Ukraine's industrial capacity, and happy to continue our discussion with the EU and partners in that regard. And probably building on everything which has been said by me, ahead of the new political process, which is to start in European Union very soon and already have started, we have to understand that over these 3 years, some basic fact should become clear to us. EU has become and becomes more and more stronger geopolitical player. In fact, it is EU which has proven collectively that it can make decisions and can fight for its security, fight for its values, and capable of doing it. European Union has the necessary amount of innovations, policy planning, and capacity and ability to secure European continent. It's very important that the next European Commission, the next European Parliament will be weaponized or instrumentalized with the necessary leverage which will be brought to it by the decisions we can still take. And I think that developing the defense industrial policy and looking more closer into European security would also make us feel more confident in our ability to defend ourselves, to defend our values. And as our moderator said, that the project which has been created for peace should exist for peace only, but should be equipped for the war. And when we're talking about Europe, we are Europe. We are responsible for the security and for the peace on our continent. And I think that based on this understanding, we should develop our policies further. And in that regard, despite the fact that I'm addressing this distinguished audience in the building of European Parliament, I think we should all understand that basically Euro-Atlantic aspirations of Ukraine, they're more than just a political process. Ukraine, in fact, already enjoys much more guarantees and security support that has ever been considered even within Article 5 of the North Atlantic Treaty of Washington Treaty. So it's really important to mobilize necessary political will and set up in stone the necessity to stand with Ukraine as long as it is needed until this brutal war is over, that military and defense assistance will be secured by the decision of the Washington NATO summit. It's very important to make sure that we all understand that the persistence always defeats the anger and aggressions, and the persistence is the new strategy that we have to cherish in every element of support and in every element which sets in stone the stability, security and peace in Europe. And I think that it is only the European Union who has always been showing the result, the progress, the unity through persistence in adhering to the goals and the principles it was based on. So rest assured that Ukraine will keep on standing strong. Ukraine will always keep on fighting for its freedom, independence, and the European project. And you can always be sure that I will conclude every remark I address to this audience at every Congress of EU that we have never been letting down Europe. Europe will not let us down. So let's make sure that we take all the necessary efforts and decisions to make Europe stronger, larger, more capable, and prepared. Thank you.
Yeah. Thank you very much. Definitely laying out everything else we're going to speak about this afternoon, pretty much, from defense capacity to exactly what the Vice President wants to speak about, reconstruction, the need for assistance in the future. We heard a lot of gratitude from the Deputy Prime Minister, but also a wish list for the future. And this is something that you are going to talk about today. What, even as the war rages on, even as it's hard to imagine how and when this war could end, the Commission is looking at how to help Ukraine rebuild. Is there anything that can go on while the bombs are still falling? And what is your plan for the future? This is something that I'm sure Ukraine very much needs to hear.
Well, first and foremost, already now, things are going on while the bombs are falling, while the drones are attacking. Thank you very much for being with us, Olga. It's great to see you in good shape. It's inspiring to have your leadership. And what a forum. You should have the chance to see you as I see you. This is how the Renew family ought to present itself. Strong, vigorous, ready for really difficult discussions, but to show the strength that Europe can deliver. And I think the most important message is still Europe, the European Union will continue to support Ukraine for as long as it takes. It has been said before, it must be said again, because Putin is relying on European impatience, that we cannot keep ourselves focused, that we get distracted. And we will prove him wrong, because we will have a long-term perspective in standing by Ukraine. Because the point, of course, is that we will continue our support in all these many fields where we are supporting right now: financial, military, humanitarian, the temporary protection, the trade, the economics, the telecommunications, just to name a few. And all of these areas have a role to play when it comes to the reconstruction of Ukraine. And the point is not just to build better from the war. It is to enable Ukraine to thrive as a future member of our European Union. That's the point. And last December, as you will all know, the Council took the historic step by agreeing to opening accession negotiations with Ukraine. That is a demanding task that we all have ahead of us. The determination we have seen by both the Ukrainian government, by the citizens, well, that makes me confident that with leaders like Olha, Ukraine can bear and face the challenges of an enlargement process. Unfortunately, there was not yet agreement on how, rather than whether, to continue our financial support. I am reassured that the clear resolve to agree on the financial package on the 1st of February, because one way or another, obviously, money will continue to be made available. And both these two things, the enlargement process and the support, they are, of course, connected. And in a way that it has never, I think, been the case before. Because Ukraine's reconstruction and the enlargement, well, they go together. And I think this creates possibly the only silver lining of the ashes of this horrible war. Not to build back the country what it was, but to enable, and with the Ukrainians, to build a thriving, modern, digital economy with a strong rule of law on democratic pillars. And by providing financial support linked to reforms of the enlargement process, well, those two instruments will reinforce each other, as we know it here from the Union of the Recovery and Resilience Plans, that investment and reforms go together. It leads to stronger results, it leads to durable results, it makes sure that funding is used efficiently. And the second thing is, what can we learn from Ukraine? I think that is a good question, because this is a relationship. This is not a one-way street. And I think we have already learned a great deal from Ukraine. The courage, the determination of the Ukrainian people in the face of a barbaric aggression has been and continue to be, I think, a source of inspiration for every and each of one of us. And the Union has already taken this inspiration. The steps we have taken to rise up to the challenge, be it on sanction, switching away from our Russian energy dependence, mustering military aid, and perhaps most importantly, deciding on enlarging our union. None of this would have been possible without the Ukrainian bravery. None of it. Having said that, these are only initial steps. Much more will be needed. And the shift towards a geopolitical union is an enduring process that we must continue to nurture in the face of European elections and a new institutional setup this year. When I see how Ukraine has risen in the face of adversity, it gives me the hope that we will rise as well. In comparison, our challenges, they are small. Just as an example, see what Ukraine has made during the war, how it has made the most of digital to tackle war challenges, including cybersecurity, continuing education, government services, making them available through the DIA wallet. Well, they should inspire us. Look how many European countries cannot deliver the same level of digital public services as Ukraine has developed during wartime. If we cannot take this inspiration, I don't know what will inspire us to move forward to serve our citizens better. So I am confident that we will keep learning from Ukraine. And I am confident that we will be inspired from Ukraine. And I am confident that this union will be a much more dynamic union once Ukraine is a member. The union will be a better place once this brave country is indeed a member of us. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much. Now, Marie-Agnes, you come from a country where these two roles, being both a project of peace but also assisting a country at war, are debated constantly, Germany. And I'm interested in how this looks from Germany, from the national perspective. How does Germany see the challenges of Europe's dual roles, certainly with relation to Ukraine, but also going forward?
First of all, thank you very much. It's really a great moment for me to be here. And, you know, I'm so deeply European. I'm feeling really good today. Okay. So thank you very much. Even this topic, it's really, it's more than dramatic. And thank you very much for your words. Because it's so important after 2 years that we're still going strong. It's really important. If you are talking about people, I mean, sometimes it's really a strange situation. Between the years, a journalist, she talked to me and she said, come on, between Christmas and New Year's Eve. I mean, it's now enough, and it would be so great. We have a memorandum in Ukraine so that we all together could be happy. And I said, come on. It's not a question of our feeling. It's a question what happens in Ukraine. And, you know, for us, the most important thing is to still going strong. And the question in Germany, we started slowly, very typical, lots of discussion. And after some months, many Germans, and really 85% of the German parliament said to the chancellor, to the executive, you could deliver military, economic, but I'm now talking about questions of weapons, you could deliver whatever Ukraine needs. And so I think that Germany, after 1.5 years, nearly 2 years, Germany is really a factor. I mean, we deliver a lot, but of course we have to deliver more. And now we have a discussion what kind of weapons. And it's interesting because you have even in TV you have discussion about weapons. And I swear 2 years ago, if I would say 2 years ago we have discussion about weapons, you know, everybody would think I drink too much or whatever. So we have now discussion what's going on, what can we do, but the truth is that many people in Germany said, yes, we have to do more, but we have to do it together with the European countries. It's not a bilateral question. It's a question, of course, countries are different, that's a fact, but we have to do it really more. Every 27 countries have to do more. Otherwise, I think, and we think, there's no chance for Ukraine. So let's go being strong again, and it's a fact. Putin thought 2 years ago that the European Union is a softball, you know, and he's still surprised that we are still going strong. And so I think it's really very important to tell the biggest criminal in this area we are still going strong and we are tough enough to help the Ukraine.
Thank you very much. I'm sure that those words are warmly welcomed in Kyiv. Natalie, I would guess that the subcommittee has never been so active with so many real-life examples of the decisions that you're making. I mean, many people in this room from frontline states feel that Ukraine's questions are existential also for EU states.
Indeed, they are. First, let me say, indeed, what a crowd. You said it, Margrethe. But I'm looking forward to the moment where we have Ukrainian MEPs in this room, Georgian MEPs in this room, Moldovan MEPs in this room, and MEPs from the Western Balkans. And we will be even stronger. It's not a question of if, it's a question of when. And we have to stop asking only candidate countries when they will be ready. We have to put our house in order. so that we can welcome them. That's what you do with guests, that's what you do with friends. As regards how busy we are, yes, we are. We started the mandate asking for a white book on European defense, just in case. And people were wondering why we had this obsession. And finally, the strategic compass was ready and adopted at the moment where the war in Ukraine had already started. Yes, we have done a lot. It's unprecedented because the European Union was a project of peace, a project for peace, and we had never thought we would use instruments to support a country at war. So yes, we are training tens of thousands of Ukrainian military. Yes, we are providing military assistance, and we will do it as long as it takes, but it's not enough. Our motto should be as much as it takes, and it should be now. We have to speed up what we are doing. And this is what this parliament has been asking for months. This is what the European Commission has prepared and started with a number of new instruments to procure together the ammunition plan, and Thierry Breton is in the room. But where are the member states? Yes, they are doing things, and you said it, Marie-Agnes, but it's not enough. Our security depends on Ukraine, but Ukraine's victory depends both on the bravery of their soldiers and on our support. So what are we waiting for? Are we waiting for a new wake-up call in case Donald Trump would be elected again next November? This is not completely theoretical. It could very well happen. This is what strategic autonomy is about, to do things with the Americans and our allies every time we can, but to be ready to do it autonomously when we have to. And it's more existential for the European Union than for any other place in the world to have Putin defeated in Ukraine. So we should provide more equipment. We should stop arguing about defensive, offensive weapons, long-range or medium-range missiles. This has made us waste time. When you are attacked, as Ukraine is, everything is defensive. So let's just open our eyes. So where are we stuck? Where are we blocked in the process? First, we are blocked in the Council by one member state. Do we, Renew Europe, want the foreign and defense policy of the European Union to be decided by Viktor Orban? I think the answer is easy. The answer is no. We have to overcome this difficulty. Whether we do it with able and willing countries or we can convince Orban, I don't know, but we have to decide it in the coming weeks, not in a few months' time. It would be too late. And if we lack money because we lack orders, industries, companies tell us, yes, we can do more, yes, we can speed up, but where are the orders? And our budget people, we all know them, they say we don't have money. That's the usual answer. First, you have to check. Second, if that's a reality, and sorry for some liberal ears in this room, we have to have a European defense loan. If not now, then when? We were ready and able to protect us against a virus. We should be ready and able to protect Ukraine and Europe against Putin and the virus of barbarism.
But that didn't work with the bullet comparison. This was what you know, was proposed, that like the vaccines, we get the bullets. We you know, and it didn't work, this idea. I remember this being launched almost exactly a year ago at the Munich Security Conference in earnest, and the Estonians brought forward this proposal and it was passed, and you're not even close to getting there.
Because there was, and there is still some sort of naiveness, and there is what we hear of Ukraine fatigue. I don't know where people find this Ukraine fatigue. Certainly not among our fellow citizens. If you look at the polls throughout Europe, our fellow citizens support Ukraine. They want us to do more. They want us to do more for European defense. They realize we live in a dangerous world. And it's not only Ukraine. We see what's happening in the Red Sea right now. We were very proud to have a CSDP operation fighting piracy in the Indian Ocean, Atalanta. We had it, it worked. What are we waiting to have the same thing in the Red Sea right now? Our trade is coming through the Red Sea and the Suez Canal. And our trade is at threat now because not of a big superpower, a small rebel group supported by Iran. Are we able to overcome this difficulty? Are we able and willing to show that we are relevant and reliable? There's a question mark about the relevance and the reliance of the European Union right now as a geopolitical power. Do we want to be on the winning side or do we want to be on the losing side? This is exactly now that it will be decided. And I do hope that member states follow the lead of the Commission and of the Parliament, are bold enough. When we want to protect peace, we have to prepare not for war ourselves, but for defending ourselves. We were, until recently, designed the European Union as a cruise ship. And our cruise ship is sailing through rough water, so we have to make some sort of reforms and bold actions.
Thank you very much. Couldn't resist on the ammunition, but I have Thierry Breton coming up for those questions. So I would like to give my panelists a chance to briefly address each other. Quickly, we have about, according to the Vice President, we have about 13 minutes left maximum. So would any of you like to respond, or would you like to go to questions from the audience? Okay, excellent. We're all very curious. Who would like to ask questions? Kira Rudik. Push the red button there. You seem to know what you're doing there.
Dear panelists, thank you so much for your words, of the support, and it's incredibly warm to hear them. I'm coming here from Kiev, where on January the 2nd, my home was damaged by the Russian missile hit, and I was there. It was one of the most dramatic experiences of my life. I'm here to deliver a very simple message to all of you. The war is not over, and it's getting closer and closer, and at some point it's getting worse for the peaceful people in the cities that cannot be protected because of the lack of the air defense systems. So when we cleaned the shattered glass, and you know, when I'm asked right now, how do I know that Putin doesn't want peace? I can direct everyone to the 7 bags of the shattered glass that we gathered from my home. Then there was a question on how to rebuild it, because I was fairly lucky and not too many of my neighbors were. Right now we understand that the support that we are expecting from the EU, which is 50 billion euros, and it's a fantastic amount, would not be enough. And there is a 10 times more amount of money of Russian assets that are being frozen but not being used. I think it's the best, the fair, and the just way of compensating and using the money for the sake of Ukraine is taking those money that right now are being frozen in the European countries. So what is your stance on this decision? On making sure that it is not good people of European Union are paying for the support for Ukraine from their pockets, but it is Russia that is paying for the damage that it has created. Thank you, and glory to Ukraine.
Margrethe, can you talk to that? The Commission does have a proposal.
Yes, well, first of all, thank you very much for traveling and being with us today. It's a great honor. And I think it's very pertinent what you say. I don't think anyone in this room make the mistake to think that the war is anywhere over. Not at all. Because even though the media is not as preoccupied because of the situation of the Middle East, I think everyone realizes the seriousness of the situation and also sees through the necessity of not giving in to ideas that this is a lost war, that we are impatient. And that was exactly my point, and I think the point of everyone here, that Putin should not be able to rely on our impatience, our lack of willingness to keep focus. We should prove him wrong. To have a plan over several years as to how to stand by Ukraine and how to enable the membership to start. The Commission has a proposal for the dividends, the profits coming from the frozen assets. We have taken the first steps. This is not without controversy, but we think it's very important that we do that exactly to show European citizens that just as well as they support Ukraine, what we get from these assets potentially can do exactly the same.
Okay, thank you. Thank you, Kira. Other questions from further afield? Yes, ma'am.
Hello, I'm Katalin Cem, MEP from Hungary, and it's wonderful to see so many liberals in this room and to listen to this conversation, but the subject, of course, is extremely troubling. And when Natalie mentioned that there is one person keeping the entire European Union hostage, and upon one person's decision relies the fate of our continent, coming from that country, I feel extremely frustrated. And particularly given the fact that the strategy the Commission has unfortunately chosen very recently is to disburse money to this guy who is blackmailing the entire EU. And I'm just really wondering, what kind of strategies do we see for the way ahead of us? Because it's not only Orban now. Now we have Fico in Slovakia, and we have more and more problematic countries popping up. So how do you imagine unlocking the support for Ukraine in January? What is the strategy of keeping Ukraine supported during the Hungarian presidency? Wouldn't it be just easier to move forward with Article 7 and withdrew the voting rights, as it very well should happen? I think the pleasing autocrats will never be successful, and I really hope that we can stand strong next to our principle, not only in words, but also in action. Thank you.
Thank you, Catalina, and the question she brings up about removing the voting rights. I understand that all MEPs have now received a letter asking for them to sign on for a movement to ask for a vote to submit a proposal to the Commission and the member states on starting this procedure under 7.2. Moritz? Yes? He's nodding, yes, if I said it correctly. I mean, what about that? Is this a possibility, Natalie?
Well, I would like also to add that our political group, Renew Europe, has started a process of approaching other political groups in the parliament to have a joint statement urging the European Council to take action in the financial support for Ukraine and military support for Ukraine. And I'm confident that most of the political groups, not all, we know that, but most of them will join this movement, and it was started by Renew Europe.
But can you do it at 26? No.
On military support, we use an instrument which is European Peace Facility.
Yes.
It's not in the European budget. It's outside of it. It had a number of assets when we started, and I was very proud that we decided to use it. But if Orban keeps on blocking it, there are other ways of pooling and sharing on financial resources without using this very specific instrument. And we should be creative. It's now that we have to do it. If it's 26, well, maybe Orban will be happy not to participate in it, but the most important thing is that we are not stopped by a Trojan horse of Putin in Europe.
How would Germany feel about removing voting rights from Hungary?
Oh, I think it's a right way. I mean, it's very important that you said it, because it's unbelievable that one country or one president, it's not the country, you know, and to explain to people that he went to the toilet and got 10 billion euro. I mean, okay, let's go to the toilet. I mean, that is not the answer for all these things. So thank you very much. Yes, we have to do, and I think you could explain it better what we could do for the future. That it's not possible that one guy could destroy our idea of freedom and peace.
Yes. And then I'm going to go to Olha.
Maybe just one thing, because I'm part of the college who has gone through the Orban government's reactions to the different processes. And the thing is that this is a union built on the rule of law. And there has been, I think, very rightfully, a very diligent process. And in the instances when Hungary live up to what they were supposed to, in the union built on the rule of law, money will need to be dispersed. That doesn't change the fact that we will be as diligent on the areas where change is not coming. And of course, we will be diligently following up if the changes actually materialize on ground, that it is for real. So that is just one point on that. And the second point is, I think, the good news, well, maybe it could be expected, that it's one of the priorities of the Belgian presidency to continue the Article 7 hearings and the process, exactly for the reasons mentioned, because that is ongoing. But the question of unleashing the funding to Ukraine cannot wait. The processes with Hungary, the second, the third instrument, a decision needs to be taken now, and I think everyone should encourage the heads of state and government, when they come together early February, that this is time to take that decision. It is within weeks this needs to be done, not within months. And everyone should do that, and I think the parliamentary processes is very important. They are very important in order for that strong encouragement, because this is the obvious signal that all the promises that we have given, that we mean it. Because a promise to stand by is completely empty if we cannot deliver what enables Ukraine to move forward.
So that may solve this glitch of the funding of the 50 billion, but that doesn't solve the bigger problems of the bigger questions of whether Hungary's undemocratic behavior would rise to the level of removing voting rights. Do you think there's any possibility of that? Well, as they head into the presidency, let's remember.
Yeah, well, I'm not close enough to the Article 7 process to be a judge of that. I just say that the Commission is not only obliged, but also, passionate in doing what is needed, because this is about the fundamentals. This is about the rule of law in member states of a union based on the rule of law. My point was just to say these processes, they are ongoing, but they will not materialize with a result anytime soon, and we need the decision on Ukrainian funding soon as possible.
The February 1st summit.
Yes.
Yes. By the way, you've been given 12 more minutes. I don't know if you know that. So, with apologies to the next panel. But Olha, how do you feel when you're reminded that one country is holding up not just 50 billion euros at this point, but I mean, numerous other mechanisms are required to get support from this country? And he may not be the only one, but anyone else can hide behind Hungary.
Well, thank you so much. In fact, I also wanted to build my concluding remarks on this case. But
we have 12 minutes. We have 11 minutes. You don't have to conclude
this
yet.
Financial support for the next 4 years is vital to us, and we basically cannot imagine the situation if the decision is not taken on the 1st of February. So it's literally a matter of survival, and the Minister of Social Policy from our government is now working in Brussels to address the possible scenario if the decision is not taken. So, and this is clearly the message I was convening, that the resilience of Ukraine should not be taken for granted. It has a price, and it's vital for all of us and for every Ukrainian. And I think that this decision is where we really need to build all possible political will and commitment, and not to look for any other scenarios. And this decision would also be important for the next decisions to be taken by US Congress on the financial support. And of course, we understand that we're not even talking about the enlargement support, we're talking about the survival support, and it's vital. So thank you, colleagues, and Margrethe and other colleagues for being very clear on that. I hope we will see it in the final decision on the 1st of February. But speaking about the veto case, I think To some extent, we have to make the conclusions from the case we had at the European Council, where there was a tendency to make the process a veto-driven, but not the strategy and consensus-driven. Everybody understood, more importantly, not only the importance of the decision on enlargement to be taken, but everybody understood the consequences, the negative, long-lasting consequences of not taking this decision. And given the ability for let's say, pro-radical and far-right leaders to get more united, to feel themselves more stronger, and to show also to Western Balkan countries, not only to Ukraine, that nothing has changed, that things are being done the way it have been done before. So I think that the prevention it from happening had played a crucial role. But it also gives us a very important lesson in the other dimension. Article 5 of the Washington Treaty, and I'm sorry I referred to that many times, but I think it's very, very relevant, requires unanimity on the decision on its application. It requires even unanimity to have the consultations on the Article 5. So I don't think that I have to continue here with modeling any possible scenarios further. And that's why when we're talking about the security of Europe being in our hands, we have to take all these factors into account. So today it's Hungary. The other day, when it comes to the security of one or the other EU member state, this could be another country across Atlantic who can say that it's not serving a broader interest of the others. So what is in our hands is basically Europe and its future. And I think that the lessons we are learning from these cases, like it was the case of Hungary, should also involve in a concrete decisions. And it also shows the persistence. I think that the coffee gate of the European Council of the 15th of December should not become a system. We should learn our lessons and prevent us from happening and finding ourselves in this situation. So I think that the stronger, more strategic union, which is able to defend itself and to defend the continent generally, is the strategy that we have to cherish, and the persistence we should show in every step of this way. And first and foremost, we have to make sure that we're able to secure the survival of Ukraine, secure Ukraine's victory, and it's totally in our hands and in our power. Yes, it will require much more commitment, much more political talks, and much more political will. But I'm sure we can do it, and we should start from every small decision we can take at our platforms. And I hope that the feeling that we have now that after European Council, there is a tendency at the level of European Commission enlargement part to delay and block the process is only something that seems to us, but rest assured that Ukraine is totally ready and to mobilize to run the enlargement process, to make it effective, and to make it not veto-driven.
Thank you very much. I can probably take one more quick question and then allow our panelists here in person concluding remarks on anything they've heard. No? No one? Okay. Okay. Would you like to have some concluding remarks on things? You've all been taking notes, so I'm interested to hear your reflections on what you're taking away from our panel today.
I think it is a really good feeling in all this discussion, which everybody I mean, we are liberals, and in this really tough times, it's not easy to be liberal. And I think for the next months, it's really important to explain people in our countries how important it is outside of this situation, how important it is to stand close to the Ukraine, and that this has something to do with our peace and future. And you have to explain it every day, because in our country we have a hard right-wing party, we have a left-wing party, and they're really close to Moscow. It's unbelievable, but that's the truth. And so we have to explain it, we have to fight. with the Ukraine, but also in our countries, that people realize how important it is that Ukraine come the chance to win this war.
And by the way, there was just a huge disinformation campaign unveiled that even amplified these sentiments. In Germany, there's just been a huge disinformation campaign unveiled that showed that Moscow was fanning these flames even further.
Yes, I think it's not only in Germany. I think it's all
definitely
over.
True.
It's really a kind. I mean, the cyber war started already, and you could see it in the internet. What happens there? I mean, it's unbelievable, and people believe all this sorry bullshit.
Yeah.
And that's the reason why we have to be really very clear. And yes, and we have to fight for this in our countries and to be together strong in Europe.
Thank you. Vestager.
Well, as you say, I've been taking notes. And I think it's really important that we take this panel and the rather high-level discussion as part of the inspiration to do all the specific things. I know how much you're all involved in specific issues. Some are helping out when it comes to having kidnapped children of Ukraine coming back to Ukraine. As Natalie mentioned, the work that Thierry Breton has done on ammunition. The fact that we have just opened a Horizon Europe office in Kiev. These are all specific measures. And every one of you, every one of us in the Commission, we feel that this is not a high-level question of just dispersing a lot of money. It is building a relationship in all these different areas, because that is what will pave the way for not just sort of the formal enlargement of Europe, but also the cultural enrichment of Europe coming with the enlargement, that we build relations among each other. And I think this is a good token for that as well. That it's also about how we meet and what we do one-to-one with the NGOs that we like to work with what is our prime interest, because as was obvious, there are so many things where we can take the inspiration, and there are so many areas where Ukraine will still need us. And I hope we will go further in this as the Renew family to encourage one another to do the specifics. And then, of course, also take the learning when we're worried about right wing from our Polish colleagues, who shows that it's possible. Congratulations very much, Rosa, on what you have achieved. And I think part of that, yes?
This is what Michal is going to talk about in our next panel.
Yeah, part of that, of course, also comes with the fact that many parties sort of took their personal party-centristic interest aside because they were up against something bigger. And I think that is food for thought in our family of liberal and social liberal parties. To what degree can we put aside our party-centric issues in order to win a bigger victory, which is to prevent the European Parliament to be completely polarized between the hard right and a Moscow faithful left. That is the challenge also to us, and here I think we can learn a lot from what was achieved in Poland.
And Natalie, final words from you.
I would like to go back to this word of enlargement, which I don't like very much, because for me it's not enlargement, it's reunification of Europe, which has to be completed. Today we have a choice. It's either enlargement or encirclement of Europe by malicious third states. So the choice should be easy to make, but it's not so easy to implement. It's going to be a lot of work for candidate countries. It's going to be a lot of work for ourselves, for our policies, and for our governance, because we mentioned the veto, and this is something that we should overcome in the future. But it's not because there's a lot of work to be done that it is not a project of enthusiasm. We are the only place in the world where sovereign states, countries, want to join us. This is the contrary of imperialism. This is the contrary of colonialism. Sovereign, independent countries long for joining the European Union. It should make us proud, it should make us responsible, it should make us willing to spread this pride through the European election campaign. And it will be a tough campaign because these interferences, this hybrid warfare is taking place on our territory right now, so we have to be ready. But I'm quite reassured to see that on these hard issues, there was a panel of women.
Yeah. And you guys were hard. Yes, thank you. I'm also very pleased with this, having hosted so many, well, I don't want, no disrespect to the following panel, which is all males, except me. But anyway, thank you so much to my tough ladies here. Thank you again, Olha, and greetings to Kyiv, and all our best wishes. Thank you very much. We are now going to move into our second panel. You guys were, that was a blast. Thank you so much. And now we will continue on this vein. Let's see if these guys can be as tough. Coming up on panel 2, Renewing Europe's Economy and its Values-Based Model in a Fragmenting World, Challenges and Opportunities. Commissioner Thierry Breton, who has been mentioned several times here already. Thank you very much. Michal Kobosko, thank you. Thanks for being here. Sorry for the wait. Michal Kobosko, who's the chairman of the EU Affairs Committee of the Sejm in Poland. Already previewed his remarks. And Ivan Krastev, chairman of the board of the Center for Liberal Strategies in Bulgaria. Thank you, Ivan. Good to see you. All right, gentlemen. So, I mean, let's keep up the momentum. We've definitely already previewed topics for this panel, and I'm going to start with Commissioner Breton. You've been asked what's going on with the ammunition. You made this tour. You were out front, even criticized for the strength of your calls at times for strategic autonomy, for increased weapons production, for speeding up the production lines. And yet, where are we today?
Thank you very much, and very happy to be with you and to see all these friendly faces in this setup. You know, we took something unbelievable in order to sustain and to support Ukraine. We know that there is no other issue and no other possibility but increasing our defense production capacity. And it's true that it is something totally new to do this together. And I would like to pay tribute, and especially to our Renew family and the European Parliament, because we have been able, in a very short period of time, to do something, believe me, which was unbelievable, even 2 or 3 years ago. In other words, asking the European Parliament, and of course the Council, to give us the possibility to invest now in defense industry with public money to increase our capacity to produce ammunition. And it has been passed by a very, very, very large majority of this House. And that's something really new. Mm-hmm. Now, what did we do for that? We took a commitment. The commitment was that we will be able to increase our production of ammunition, dedicated ammunitions, 155, dedicated missiles, even 120, all these ammunition that unfortunately you're familiar with. And we said that we'll be able to produce more than 1 million of this ammunition by spring. And I want to tell you here today that we will stick to our commitment.
Wait, you're going to get 1 million by spring, by March?
Absolutely.
Okay.
And I'm telling you that yes, we have been able collectively, because you mentioned that I was touring and I've been able to visit every single manufacturing industry in defense and especially ammunition on our continent. And because of this momentum, I have been extremely impressed to see that the industry decided to increase their capacity, and yes, we will stick to our commitment by March or April. But it's not enough, because we need to make sure that our production should match, more or less, with the production of Russia. And we know pretty well what's happening in Russia. I will not be public here. This is, of course, specific information, but we know. And I could tell you that thanks to ASAP, because what I've told you is before ASAP, we are now in the process to finalize the selections of the, let's say, 20 sites which will benefit from European money to increase the scale-up of their production. This will be done in the next few weeks and months. And then it will continue to accelerate our production of munition, probably between 1.3 to 1.4 at the end of this year, and continue to increase. And yes, I am convinced that within the next 18 months to 2 years, yes, we will be at par with Russia, which is extremely important, and especially because when time will come, hopefully, to discuss, it's not in our hands, it's in the hands, of course, of Volodymyr Zelensky, with Russia, hopefully, to win. It's extremely important that in this discussion, Putin will know who is behind, and that we have the same capacity than he has. Now, there is another issue, which is producing is good, delivering to Ukraine is what we want. And this is where we need now to convince member states to put pressure on their own industry to make sure that within the next few months, all the productions of our ammunition goes to Ukraine. Because today, I should tell you, I will mention the figures that our HR VP, Joël Borrell, said. He said that probably 40% of our production is going outside of Europe. These are his figures. It means that, of course, we need to be disciplined because we are talking of our future, of our own security. And today, it's true that we need to make sure that in every single member state, we have the pressure on the industry to make sure that all the production is going now to Ukraine, which is not yet the case. But for our part, yes, we will deliver what we committed for.
Okay, well then all the headlines were wrong saying you weren't going to make it.
But
in fact, the admission.
You know,
sorry, you have a journalist moderating, but it's true.
The headlines are the headlines. What were the headlines saying? The headlines were probably saying that we will not send 1 million, probably, hopefully.
Yes.
But I could tell you, it's still feasible.
Okay.
If we are disciplined, because from our part, we deliver. The only thing we can do, we are not the Council. We are not member states. We are only the European Commission.
But you can produce the 1 million by March or April.
I'm telling you, yes.
All right, okay,
yes.
good.
Yes,
all right.
And of course, and even more, I give you including figures, because of the acceleration that we will produce thanks to the effect of ASAP starting H1, we are reaching 1.3 to 1.4 minimum at the end of this year and continue to increase, of course, next year. And you know, Putin is watching everything we are doing, especially in my field, but not only. Everything we are doing is watching.
Yep.
So I think it's extremely important that he understands what I just said, which is the reality. And I'm not happy when I see some defense minister, I don't mention anyone, it's also in the newspaper, saying, "Oh, we will not be able to deliver." This is not the kind of information you give when there is a war on your continent, and especially when we are now enhancing our infrastructure to be able to stick the commitment that we made, rightly so, to Ukraine.
All right. I'm sure there will be more questions on this, but it's very interesting for me as an ammunition geek. Thank you. Michal.
Don't believe too much what is written in the newspaper.
No, of course not. Michal, this panel is also about value-based battles, and you just won one. And I think a lot of people would like to hear how did this happen? I mean, could it happen in Hungary? I think everyone would like to hear that. And what role can this new Poland now play, coming back from having been sort of a problem child?
Right, thank you, Teri. Hello, everyone. Hello, dear friends, dear colleagues. Let me start with saying, Thierry, thanks a lot for your efforts, for what you did, your personal engagement. Poland is already increasing the production of the ammunition, but still, it's not enough. It's not enough. We have to repeat this to ourselves every day. This is not enough what we are doing now, because we cannot let this war not only to be continued, but to be lost, because this is a war about the future of Europe, about the future of ourselves. So that's for the beginning. Now, coming back to your question. Firstly, I'm bringing with me our best regards from Poland and directly from our leader, Szymon Hołownia. Some of you might have heard he's making a fantastic speaker of the parliament in Warsaw. There are hundreds of thousands of people following online sessions of the parliament in Poland on YouTube and elsewhere. That's unprecedented what's happening there. And this is a good sign. This is telling you that something really important happened in this country. And yes, on October 15th, we won the general elections. We, the four political democratic alliances, won elections, and we were able to form coalition. The unprecedented turnout in Poland, 74% of Poles voted, have spoken on that day. And the vast majority said no to Mr. Kaczyński, to his idea about isolating Poland, disintegrating Europe, further copy-pasting from Viktor Orban in Warsaw. So that was a decision of the people. That doesn't mean, obviously, that things are happening easily or that what we are doing today can be done in an easy and subtle way, if you like, because the opposition, the Kaczyński party, is still there. Some 30% of the electorate is supporting them. And what we are facing today as the new coalition, actually, we have to face the real situation when Mr. Kaczyński and his party have used the last 8 years to demolish the state institutions, to lower the quality of the state institutions. Actually, just to give you a flavor of what's going on today, after we won elections, we are having two chambers of the same Supreme Court in Warsaw fighting against each other today. We are having two centers of command in the public television today. The same in prosecutor's office, and so on. So Mr. Kaczyński was actually he used these years to create a kind of a parallel state, if you like, an alternative state. This is a sabotage. You could put it in this way. This is acting against the interest of your own country, and we have to face it. We have to face the real situation. Just one more thing. As we speak today in Brussels, we are having the situation, a very specific situation in Warsaw. Two former heads of the anti-corruption office, those guys who were using Pegasus against democratic opposition in the country, they were recently sentenced for 2 years in jail. And what's happening right now in Warsaw, they are trying to protect themselves, to hide themselves in the presidential palace in Mr. Duda place. And Mr. Duda is supporting them. So I think it would be hardly imaginable for all of you, for many of you, to imagine such a situation in your capital cities, in your countries. This is what the current new democratic government of Poland is facing right now, that kind of challenges. But we are optimistic, and we were optimistic before elections as well. I'm sure that Poland will survive, we will survive, and we will succeed. And Poland has ambitions to lead the good change in Europe, good change which is badly needed and desired. But firstly, for now, we have to stay fully focused on fighting against those who want to weaken our Europe, our institutions, our countries. Putin, as Thierry said, Putin is watching. Putin is sitting and watching. We cannot allow him to move any further into Europe. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Ivan, you have just written a paper saying the European Union is paralyzed and that it is basically inhibited in moving forward on any of these challenges, but then you need to give some ideas, right? You're saying that faced with these crises, Europe doesn't know what to do. So how about some solutions?
Thank you. First, it's much easier to comment on elections than run on elections. And I won't start with respect for people who have the courage to run. Secondly, and for me this is critically important, I do believe we are in some situation in Europe which I'm going to define it as a vertigo moment. And great Czech writer Milan Kundera said, vertigo is not the fear of falling. Vertigo is the heroic struggle against the desire to jump. And this is a strange situation in which, if you look politically, comparing with 5 years ago, there is not a major political party in Europe that openly talk about exit. This was the effect of Brexit. But at the same time, basically, for many Europeans, future stopped to be a project and very much is perceived as projections. Projections of the conflicts that are going to run, projections of climate temperature, and so on. So with colleagues from the European Council of Foreign Relations, we decided to do something that could be probably of some use for all of you who are going basically to try to solve this problem. And the question was, we decided to ask people in 9 European member states covering 75% of the population, which of the 5 crises that Europe has been facing in the last 15 years, I mean climate, migration, economic crisis, COVID, the war in Ukraine, you find as the most important when you think about the future. And I'm saying this because all these 5 crises have been pan-European crises. Of course, they have a different effects in different places. But basically, Europe was also now kept together because of the joint experiences of crisis. In a certain way, strangely enough, crises have integrated Europe much more than people realize in responses to this crisis. And here are some interesting findings. By the way, contrary to what people believe, there is not one crisis that dominates European publics. People talk about migration. Of all the countries that we have been studying, there is only one country in which migration by far is perceived as the most important, and this is Germany. And then you're going to see how different the geography of these crisis tribes are, because we basically try to see them.
And just to ask, migration was seen as more important than the war in Ukraine, than support for the war in Ukraine.
Listen, the most important, imagine that there are these 5 crises, 5 tribe crises in Europe based on the answers of the people. And if you're trying to imagine how many people are going to be there, there's 3 crisis, almost the same size, around 70 million European voters are going to be on this. And this is on climate, this is on COVID, and this is economic crisis. And then migration comes with around 58 million people declaring that this is the most important crisis, and the war in Ukraine is 49 million. The story is also different geographies. You go to places like Poland and Estonia, and they're going to tell you this is the war. You go in Italy or Portugal, they're going to tell you it's economic crisis. Denmark is very much between war and climate. France between very much climate and economy. I'm saying this because there's 3 interesting things that comes on this study that we did with my colleague Mark Leonard. The first is there is a very strange asymmetry. When far-right party comes to power, nevertheless, that nothing is changing on the level of migration, or even on the contrary. The number of the migrants can go up. Suddenly, people get more relaxed about migration. The classical story is Italy. But by the way, Poland itself, you have so many people who entered and suddenly migration stopped to be an issue while nothing is changing on the ground. With climate, it goes the other way around. When a Green Party comes to power, suddenly those who supported climate policies believe that it's never fast enough. And on the other side, you have the backlash from those who do not. And when you see how people from the COVID tribe vote, you're going to see that basically they're on one level, the one that are most kind of undecided. But secondly, strangely enough, it was the COVID experience that the most moving people to change their vote from previous elections. This is the strange places and strange coalition that came, particularly from people who developed a very strong, for example, anti-vaxxer positions or anti-lockdown. Economic crisis is basically creating the protest voters. They're not interested who is in power, the left or the right. They're going to vote against. Why I'm telling you all this? Because in my view, exactly because most of the Europeans have this kind of anxiety and crisis they're dealing with. In my view, the biggest mistake for Europe is to believe that there is one crisis that is basically going to define what is going to happen. In a certain way, this is this type of understanding that people experience the world in which we're living through their personal existential experiences of a very different but related crisis that is going to shape Europe. And from this point of view, yes, Europe, in my view, is in a difficult position. We're going to have the ammunition problem. By the way, European Union achieved a lot when it comes to the response of Ukraine. If people believed 2 years ago of what European Union is going to do, if somebody was going to say here, Europe is going to achieve this and this, very few people are going to believe. But the most important is, at least in my view, to understand that taking anxieties of people seriously also matters a lot. Because people are not so much Eurosceptic or pro-Europeans, they are disoriented. And this is not because simply of Europe. This is because of the world in which we are living in. And from this point of view, how to have a politics in a moment in which certainty is something of the past, in my view, is critically important. And there was a great economic study that was published recently and commented by FT, which shows that if you want to progress, one of the most important things is to believe in progress. They showed a very strong correlations between the words about progress and innovation in the period between 17th century and 19th century in the English books, published millions of books. And the same basically type of ratio in the Spanish books. It was the fact that English people at this moment believed in progress that make the progress possible. And I do believe that one of the problems that Europe can face is committing a suicide out of the fear of death. And this is why basically scaring ourselves is not going to be something that is going to work. On the other side, to try to ignore the fact that people are quite scared and actions, in my view, is also not going to work. So how to balance this, in my view, is going to be the job of people who are not commenting on elections but running on them.
But I advertised you as having solutions, Ivan. I'm sorry, I take it back.
You know what? And this is a very good... solutions on what? Because this is the story. You can basically have a solutions on a concrete problem, how to produce more ammunitions. And this is a concrete story. And you can probably try to have a solution of some of the institutional paralysis that we see on the last European Council, honestly speaking. But in a certain way, I do believe we are facing a major transformation of European politics. And this is not simply about solutions, it's also trying to understand what is the dynamics in our own societies, how people are reacting and why they're reacting, and to believe that people basically simply waiting for kind of a simple solution is slightly underestimating people.
But as we said, the situations are so different in each national context that there isn't any solution for anyone. I mean, there isn't any solution that will go around and work in every country. So when we're looking at people who are now running in elections, and again, we've said there are only 180 days in which they have to make their case and get elected for the European Parliament, are they going to have to cater to lowest common denominator and not have, dynamic ideas that are sort of outside the box if they want to appeal to the most people? Because that's also dangerous. Then you can't be risky.
Totally agree. But it's very, in my view, unrealistic to believe that Portuguese are going to fill as much kind of existentially confronted with the Russian war in Ukraine in the way the Poles or the Estonians do it. But what people should understand is the interdependence between different crises. And I do believe this is the most important of it. By the way, in the same way, people on the north are not going to be as kind of existentially troubled by what is happening in the Mediterranean when it comes to migration and even on economic issues. So from my point of view, the most important is, and this is why I do believe that Europe can be also solved by the fact that we share different crises. Because yes, I don't believe that you simply can win elections easily just on one issue. And just give you one thing that probably is going to come as a surprise to many. Normally on the war in Ukraine, you believe that it is a West-East divide. East is very tough, the West basically. Listen, this is not true. East is divided. And I'm talking public opinion, I'm not talking governments. Countries that have been part of the former Russian Empire are the ones standing very strongly with Ukraine. Countries that have been part of the Ottoman Empire, or even some of the Habsburg Empire, let's put it like this, are less committed. So from this point of view, we see also the return of the big imperial borders. You have the return of a long history in European politics. And in my view, trying to understand the complexity of all this is going to be very important because in my view, and I hope I'm wrong, what is going to happen in the wars very much is going to be decided in the ballot boxes. In the ballot boxes in Europe, in the ballot boxes of the United States. And this is something that is critically important. It's not simply going to be politicians, they're going to be the voters that should be convinced.
Commissioner Breton, you just spoke with every defense industry, every defense company in Europe. Did you find a big difference in the sort of urgency felt by these companies? That can be a business decision, but it's also, you know, it's also a political decision.
Of course, and I would like to say that I felt a huge difference.
Yeah.
A huge difference for a few reasons. The first one, of course, Ukraine is a wake-up call for us. But before that, I would like to give you, and I spoke already with Stéphane about this. Back to 2020, in January, we are sitting with Ursula von der Leyen, myself, Phil Hogan, and the President of the United States of America, Donald Trump. We were in Davos, and Donald Trump said to Ursula, you need to understand that if Europe is under attack, we will never come to help you and to support you. And by the way, NATO is dead. And we will leave, we will quit NATO. It was the President of the United States of America. He may come back. And that's, of course...
And what did she say?
And she said, what? Okay. And by the way, and he said, and he added, and by the way, you owe me $400 billion. Because you didn't pay your Germans what you had to pay for defense.
Did he give a paper or did he not?
No,
this
no
was
paper.
always a question,
no paper.
whether he actually wrote it
But
down.
anyway, that was a big wake-up call, and it may come back. So now, more than ever, we know that we are on our own. Of course, we are a member of NATO, for almost all of us. Of course, we have allies. But we have no other options but increase drastically this pillar in order to be ready, whatever happens. But not in 2 or 3 years, like said Natalie. This year. And this is why I could tell you that when I am engaging, like I'm doing, with the defense industry, they understand that. That's, by the way, quote-unquote, opportunities. But also with defense ministers and head of states. All of them, including Viktor Orban. Because when I discuss with Viktor Orban, when I'm going to Hungary, I'm impressed with what he's doing to increase drastically its own capacity of defense. Of course, he said that it will do this to be a good European and to help to deliver this for other European countries, and they will do whatever they want with this production. I'm impressed with what happened in Poland. And I could tell you that Poland will play an extremely important role in defense. Now I think your objective is to spend 4% of the GDP for defense, 4%, with an objective of 340,000 members for the army. And of course, Poland will be more and more embedded into Europe. And that's my second point. So you understand that in order to cope with this, and of course, I'm realistic, that's my job. But when I see this, yes, I think that we will do it. If we have leadership, speed, and ambition. And that's what we need to demonstrate in these coming elections. This is what we had, which helped us to cope with the crisis. But this is also what we learned to use and to do together. And now that's a common word, together. So my view is that in order to make sure that all the industries, and we are speaking about defense industry, but we could speak on other industries, chips, clean tech, pharmaceutical, that in order to make sure that we are working more and more together, we need to have the incentive that we have built in order to say, if you work together, like we did for the European Defense Fund, if you work together, 4 countries, different companies, including SMEs, we can help you to support upfront what you will do. And that's why, personally, I believe that we need to have a huge defense fund to help to accelerate even, probably in the amount of 100 billion euros to make this. We are working now with my team to finalize defense industry view. I mean, for the end of February, which is what we are working on. This will be discussed, by the way, for the next European Council, and we will have the global view of what should be done. And I'm convinced that we will do this. By the way, I'm convinced also, to come back to the previous panel, that for the next UCO, we'll find an agreement together to commit to what we have to commit to for Ukraine.
At 27.
Yes, I'm confident that we will do it. So, in a word again, to summarize, we learned a lot, and member states learned a lot. Like always in this kind of situation, again, what we need is leadership and speed. If you go fast, you can align all the vectors, which are different vectors. Go fast, they follow you, and then you align all the 27 behind you. So we need a leader, we need leadership, we have the vision, we have the ambition. Let's put this in motion.
Michal, would you like to come in? I mean, let's talk. I mean, does Poland as a frontline state have time to be tangled up in the kind of things you're discussing now, where prosecutors can't arrest, convicted criminals because they're hiding the president?
That's the real problem, that somebody else, I mean, the former government and Mr. Kaczynski himself, they are trying in a way to distract us, to bring our attention to somewhere else, to trying to engage us in kind of an internal domestic war while we have a real war next to us. And this is the tragedy of the current situation. This is the level of the lack of the responsibility of the former government of Poland. I mean, they should stay focused on the country's security, on defense, and so on. And well, they say they were talking a lot about this since the war started. But actually, what we know now is that we have to speed up the modernization of the army, the investments, the purchases for the army, modernizing is to the current needs, because we are not there yet. And yes, it was actually President Duda and the former government which declared the 4% of the 4% is huge. I mean, you can frankly say how much it is in your countries. For us as well, this is a huge amount, and nobody loves to invest in security and defense, because this money could be in a very smart way spent elsewhere, for the education, for the healthcare, for other needs of your countries and societies.
But the Baltic states have done it.
But this time, I mean, this time is very different. This time is different. This is a real war next to us, and I do understand, and I fully agree. I mean, Portugal is somewhere else and Italy has other problems, but this is our joint problem. Well, we are facing a lot of problems, and migration is one of them. And look, we also had some issues with the migration coming by Mr. Lukashenko from the east to Poland, from Belarus. But again, this is the issue number one. And I'm tired hearing about war fatigue, because this is, are you tired with your life? That should be the answer. Are you tired with the life of your kids, of the next generations in Europe? This is where we are today. So I couldn't agree more with Thierry. And again, thanks a lot also for your personal efforts, because we need to do many steps ahead. We need to be ready, because the enemy is there, and the enemy is not being stopped by our dear Ukrainian friends, because they did already a lot. They did much more than actually was anticipated and expected, and everybody said, this is Ukraine. You have Goliath and the David. Yeah, I mean, it's a war they are fighting that from a neutral perspective couldn't be won, because Russia is much stronger. Therefore, we need to be ready as well, and we need to repeat saying that we are not doing enough today. Thank you.
So I would really like to hear from the audience, because we're talking about, I mean, as Ivan said, you know, we're all obsessed with the Ukraine war and ammunition production up here. I know that I am. I cover this issue very closely. But yet climate is the #1 question for many people. Sigrid talked about that quite a bit. Do I have a hand raised back there? Please. Yes.
Ladies and gentlemen, Marta Barandi, representing Belgian organization Promote Ukraine. I have a question for Michal Kobosko. You said, citing, we cannot allow this war to be lost, which means that you obviously consider war in Ukraine as your war, which not everyone in the West does. Usually people in the West consider this just a risk. So the question for you is, how do you define the defeat of Ukraine, and what the risk for Europe then would be, and how would you define the defeat of Europe, or your defeat? Thank you.
Thank you very much for this question. Well, frankly speaking, I don't want to define the defeat of Ukraine, because I believe in a victory of Ukraine, supported by all of us, by Europe and the States. And this needs to happen. Otherwise, you know, there are really dark scenarios ahead of us. Obviously, when you talk to the experts, and I do agree with that, the defeat of Ukraine would be letting the Russians keep what they started occupying in 2014 already. That would be a defeat. I mean, the Ukraine should be solely owning all of the territory they were possessing before the war started. And this war started in 2014 already, with the occupation of the Donbass and the annexation of the Crimea. So that would be a defeat. We cannot agree to that, because this would be a defeat, I would say, #1, and this would offer more appetite to Mr. Putin to trying to grab more of the land in Ukraine, and other countries in the region would be endangered as well if Russians get what they want today. Thanks.
Can I give you one fact? And because there is a cultural change needed, which is not there. When you ask Russians, are you in a war with NATO? Majority said yes. 62% of the Chinese believe that there is a war between Russia and NATO. Majority of Saudis, of Turks. Do you know where the two only places, according to the polls, that people don't believe that there is a war between Russia and NATO? First, the United States, and second, the European Union. So it's very difficult to win the war if you don't believe that you're in a war. And I do believe, as a result of it, policymakers, they're delivering what they can. And I very much agree with leadership and speed. But if we're not going to bring people to understand this, in a certain way, and this is why the elections are going to be critical, this cultural change has not happened. You have all these different crises, and by the way, people have the feeling that they're never-ending crises. If they're not going to be the possibility to show how they're interconnected, I do believe that it's going to be very difficult, and then you're going to have a fight between these crisis tribes, and this is not going to help, particularly in a global geopolitical situation in which everybody was referring to.
Audience, yes, sir.
Hi. So my question...
Please tell us who you are.
I'm Luca from Renew Europe trainee. So I would like to take this opportunity to have our Commissioner Breton to ask a question about another threat that we didn't really mention, which is the Chinese threat. In the upcoming elections in Taiwan, things might change. If things go from bad to worse, if this country that basically makes 90% of our advanced chips for the world starts to fall under the influence of another tyrant, what will Europe do? Will Europe be prepared? Will the CHIPS Act be enough? Will the diplomatic reaction be enough? What will happen, basically, is my question. But of course, other speakers are encouraged to answer. Thank you.
Thank you, Luca.
So thank you for the question. And of course, we will we'll see very soon what are the results of the election in Taiwan. Personally, I don't think it will at least change for the coming months, probably year, the way Taiwan will be able to export, because this is what you are talking to. Today, probably between 40 to 50% of the chips that we need are coming from Taiwan. And of course, when we said that together, of course, in the European Commission, and then, of course, with the European Parliament, we decided it's time to reindustrialize our capacity to produce, of course, not everything, but some of what we need in terms of semiconductors in Europe. And by the way, we did this on our own. It's called the CHIP Act. It's now up and running. We have now more than 100 billion euros of project to be invested. 67 companies are benefiting from this. And our goal is, by the end of this decade, to be able, again, to produce 20% of the world production capacity in Europe, and we will do that. By the way, again, it is a parallel program that our US friends are doing with the US CHIP Act. And for them, it's 30% their goal. We have the same kind of magnitude in terms of project. In other words, both of us should be, by the end of this decade, where we may have some risk, 50% of the global production of the planet being processed and designed in Europe and United States. Now, the second question was, of course, we want to have also the capacity to produce all kinds of chips, including the more advanced. And it has been a lot of discussions, and believe me, also with our US allies. In some discussion I had with my counterpart, Gina Raimondo, at one time it was, look, we will do the high end, you will do the low end, and we will work together. And I said, no way. Because again, we need also to have the high-end capacity in Europe, and especially for everything which will be needed, including in HPC, supercomputers, quantum computers, and everything. So we were very tough here, and finally, we will have also the capacity to produce in Europe chips below 2 nanometers in FinFET technology, which was something extremely important. Third point, we are extremely strong in Europe in terms of R&D for chips. We have a lot of expertise. We have probably the best R&D centers in the world here in Europe, especially in Belgium with IMEC, but also in Germany with Fraunhofer Institute, but also in France with CERLT, and all over Europe. And again, in Europe, we are welcoming all the chips engineers of the planet, including, by the way, Chinese one, to be trained and understand what will be in the next phase of the evolution of the chips. So we decided here to continue to increase and to have some pilot lines in the three major technologies, FinFET, FDSOIs, and packaging, with roughly 1 billion each, benefiting, of course, for R&D, for all European countries, and also, because we are an open continent, for the one who would like to be trained here in Europe. Because again, with this, we want to reattract talents. We know that one of the biggest problems, for example, that China has, is the lack of talents, expertise, and this is why, by the way, why every Monday morning from Taiwan, you have a lot of engineers crossing the sea and going to work in China, coming back on Friday afternoon in Taiwan. So we want to keep this capacity to continue not only to develop, to enhance R&D, but also to attract talents. So that's what we have done, and believe me, it is something totally new for Europe. Because we put here also public money, like they do in the United States. And I'm happy that finally we have been able to convince, including DG Comp, and I thank Margrethe for that, because now we have a matching clause. And it was not easy. I was pushing for matching clause. DG Comp was opposed. I mean, we are in this kind of world, and we need to have reciprocity. No more naivety. And this is exactly what we did for the CHIP Act. By the way, thanks to that, we can now double it with the Clean Tech Act, and to have this as a model for our industry. Of course, we are not protectionist at all. But we understand, or we try to understand, Bernard, which is not easy, the kind of world we are entering in, and we have to be ready.
Huh. Would you like to address this, China?
No, thanks.
Even?
Too big for me.
Too big for you. Other questions? Yes, in the back there? Oh, sorry, I've got two of you. We can take you. We have like 3 more minutes. Ask both of them, and then I will incorporate them in closing remarks.
Okay.
You were given
Hello,
50.
I'm Maria, good speaker. I'm Dutch and Greek at the same time. I'm really very, very glad to be here as a member of D66 of the Netherlands. It's a general remark I would like actually
really
to make, and just because I'm very scared. In some few months we're having European elections. I was old enough to live in Greece to see the dictatorship. And I'm appalled by the fact that now in the Netherlands we are about to go maybe this way. So as a Democrat, after all, democracy, I'm so proud to say it's a Greek phenomenon, used to be at least, needs to be cherished. So my general question is, how can I, as a very simple citizen of the European Union, or somebody who lives and thrives with the idea of a united, renewed Europe, how can I contribute to some kind of, I don't know, aid or something to try to open the eyes of European citizens, at least the ones I know, to open their eyes and see where we're getting at. Thank you very much.
And the other question, really quick, and then I'll let the panelists respond. Yes?
I have a question for Thierry Breton, but I need to say some forward before it.
No, we really don't. Can you just ask your question? I think he probably knows.
Is it possible that the second Cold War, which was told by Biden on 2020, has begun with invasion of Georgia by Russians?
Why is that to Breton? He asked if the, oh, did he ask it to Michal? Oh, to Ivan. Okay, I'm going to allow you to answer those if you wish, but also your closing remarks, Ivan, will come in this direction.
Just 2 points. The first is, now when we go back, one of the most important things that I do believe as Europeans we are realizing is that we have been living in a bubble of our own. And I do believe it goes back to 2008. The idea that there cannot be a major war in Europe anymore was something that was taken for granted because of too many people. And this is one of the reasons basically what is happening. But secondly, when you talk about democracy, There is one thing that I found critically important. In 1848, when the universal male suffrage was introduced in France, there was a major poster with a worker who had a rifle in one hand and ballot on the other. And the interpretation was ballot for the class enemy and bullet for the national enemy. These days, in many democracies, you don't know whom some of the political leaders believe is the major enemy. Does, for example, Mr. Kaczynski believe that, for example, Mr. Tusk is not a bigger enemy than Putin? What is about Trump versus Biden or Trump versus Putin? I do believe that this type of a failure of our democracies to get united even when you have an existential external threat is something that I found the most scary of all the scares that we have been talking about.
That is chilling as a final thought. Thanks, Ivan. Michal.
Well, my final thought, and this is the answer about what the average citizen can do. Well, start working in the campaign and preparing for the European elections. That would be my answer, because this is the high time to start realizing that this is the crucial elections coming, the crucial elections for Europe. I'm not only talking about the composition of the next European Parliament and our position as a group in the Parliament. I'm talking about the future of the continent and the alt-right groups which are becoming stronger and stronger. And it's different in different countries, different member states. In our case, the turnout in the European elections is traditionally pretty low. So we need to get people activated, to get people engaged in the campaign and trying to tell them that this time is different, as these elections really matter this year, because this is about the future of all of us. So each and every citizen can get engaged in a way in preparing for the elections, in supporting specific candidates, and supporting our specific parties. For us, for Polska 2050, this is the first time that we'll be running in the European elections, and we know it matters a lot for our country to have a big and strong representation in the parliament, because this time is very different.
So, Stéphane, I think it's a good introduction for you now. What should we do to be prepared for the campaign? How we could help? How we could serve? By the way, Madame.
I will give him some closing
remarks. I know, but this is why on chauffe la salle. By the way, Madame, I would like to tell you that first, you are here in the right place. Because if you want to engage for Europe, for our values, for rule of law, for everything we said during these 2 sessions, Renew is the place to be. Because we are the European Party. We are the one defending all together what we spoke. And I really think that you are absolutely right to be here. Now, the second point is, of course, we are working very hard. Stéphane is building a fantastic team to support, to give every information, documents, on one hand, of what we have achieved, but we know, because we are a little bit experienced, that you don't win elections about what you have achieved, but also to propose a vision. The vision in the world we are entering in. And you know, when I look at what happened over the past few months, it's true that we see the extremes, including the extreme rights, winning in some countries. But in Slovakia or in Netherlands, it's 23%. It's not 25. It's not 30. It is 23%. It's a lot, but it is 23%. And thanks to that, we have now some countries like Poland and others where we knew it was extremely challenging, and when you have been able to overcome the situation. By the way, it's a little bit different, but including in Spain. So I think that with everything which is happening in Europe, including in the past few elections, we can go here and make sure that with our leadership, with our passion, with our ambition, we will win.
Well, Thank you very much to the three of you. And these guys have basically done my job wrapping up our conversations for today. And you weren't here earlier, Commissioner Breton, but we had lightning rounds where people, most of whom are running in European elections, came with their ideas, and it was absolutely infectious. The energy was just undeniable. People are motivated. They do have new ideas. It's not just that the challenges are unprecedented, but the energy and the motivation to bring new ideas into the European election scene is also unprecedented. So I would like to personally thank everyone who was on my panels today for bringing so many interesting and important ideas and for being very sporty about our conversations. And thanks to everyone here in the room for being such good participants. And we are going to watch a video now about some of Renew's achievements over the last term of the European Parliament, and then Stéphane will come up and give some closing remarks. Thank you very much. No, that was great. Thank you. Sorry for hard time on the AMRO. Thank you, guys. Thank you.
Let's do this.
Days, 28 countries, millions of registered voters, the 2019 European elections.
Renew Europe is the third largest political group with Dacian Shalash as group president.
Renew Europe is a kind of a new hope for Europe and for all Europeans.
The new commissioners need to prove to the members of the European Parliament that they are the right people.
Make Europe the best that she can be.
We have a plan for this mandate. Our priorities are promoting European values, investing in a sustainable future, a stronger economy and opportunities for all, a Europe that can deliver for their citizens. And we will make it happen.
But not without some challenges.
We have now formally left the EU after 47 years.
China has identified the cause of the mysterious new virus. Coronavirus.
We need to do what we can to stop this virus from spreading.
By going in lockdown.
Okay, I'm bored in the house and I'm in the house bored. Bored in the house and I'm in the house bored.
Luckily, the EU will deliver as many vaccines as possible.
The European Union has unveiled a COVID certificate.
The certificate will eliminate some obstacles.
Aujourd'hui, le Parlement européen déclenche le processus de ratification du plan de relance.
The leaders said we will raise 750 billion euros.
The COVID recovery plan, 390 billion euros to be given out in grants and 360 billion to be given out in loans.
This is the right deal for Europe right now.
In Europe, stock markets jumped at the open after the news of a deal. A plan to make transfers of EU funds to EU member states conditional on those states respecting rule of law.
This notion of European law, it's a notion of protecting rights.
The rights of the LGBT community have come under threat.
As the Renew Group, we propose to the Parliament to declare the European Union an LGBTIQ freedom zone.
Equality and democracy are under assault.
That's why we need citizens involved in the Conference on the Future of Europe.
And we need to involve young people.
Донбасса обратились к России с просьбой о помощи.
Les Ukrainiens, par le sang versé au nom de la liberté et de la démocratie, sont déjà membres de notre communauté de destin.
We need to support Ukraine's candidacy for the European Union, and we need to make membership a reality.
Let us isolate Russia, the full political, economic, and cultural blockade.
11 sanctions packages have been adopted.
This Russian war has brought about an energy crisis.
Oil prices has pushed up heating bills.
Repower EU firmly responds to Russian aggression and takes the necessary measures to eliminate any blackmail related to European gas and energy consumption.
There's little farming being done near the front lines. That means prices for wheat, barley, corn, they've skyrocketed.
Or we will be witnessing hunger and famine.
And that's why we need this import-export certificate to manage the export of cereals from Ukraine, and as long-term challenge, the integration of Ukraine and Western Balkans.
In order to meet EU membership criteria, the Western Balkan countries need to deliver concrete results.
Results of climate change are getting more and more visible.
Catastrophic floods.
Hottest ever April day.
Worst heat wave.
The hottest on record.
The European Parliament has voted to declare a climate emergency.
We need climate action.
This is really the time for Europe to step up in terms of green leadership.
New rules for industry, new rules for energy, new rules for cars, new rules for trucks, new rules for trains.
And these new European rules, we set up the goal to reach 45% renewables by 2030.
We need to become carbon neutral by 2050. We introduced a carbon border adjustment mechanism to make sure there is a level playing field.
We have to make mobility climate friendly.
The EU Parliament narrowly passed a law to help tackle climate change and restore biodiversity. It's called the Nature Restoration Law.
Nature is full with plastic waste.
Single-use plastic products are going to be banned.
Europe's green and digital transition hinges on critical raw materials.
How to secure our access to critical raw materials and semiconductors.
Semiconductors or chips are important for green technology, communication, healthcare, and artificial intelligence.
AI is everywhere. It's creating whole original pieces of art. It seems like we've just arrived at the beginning of the AI age.
Is this the right time for Europe to regulate AI? And my question is resolutely yes.
AI restrictions in the Digital Markets Act prevent gatekeepers from gathering user data sets.
Spyware is being used by several member state governments. It's a tool for authoritarianism.
And we can never ever accept that this is happening today in the European Union.
I'm proud that the European Parliament voted for the NIS2, Europe's new cybersecurity legislation, to make Europe a safer place to work, live and do business.
There is light for European SMEs thanks to Renew Europe.
Together we can actually shape policies that will provide support and opportunities for business all across Europe.
Like with the Corporate Sustainability Due Diligence Directive.
Trade is not only about exchange, it's more a global question in order to tackle all the challenges we face, especially human rights.
To European companies, we say, show your true colors. We do not allow pay secrecy anymore.
Women leadership is very important. This is also what the Simone Veil Pact is about. So women, girls, we can have it all.
Every woman has one risk out of 8 of having a breast cancer.
The European Cancer Plan was adopted with a large majority of MEPs.
I welcome the initiative of the Commission on combating violence against women and domestic violence, but it is not enough.
Jian, Azadi, women, life, freedom.
Looking for freedom, 7,000 migrants crossing the Mediterranean in just 3 days.
Nous essayons de construire une meilleure gestion de la migration.
With the Migration Pact, the EU delivers on a common European approach to regulate migration.
It's time for young people to speak up, so what am I doing here, really, honestly?
We have the Renew Europe Youth Manifesto.
We made it happen. But what's next?
Bon. Merci.
Thank you to all of the participants. Thank you for everyone for these exchanges full of energy and ideas. I don't want to forget to thank everybody from the group who allowed us to make this day possible, allowing us to communicate and exchange amongst us. Thank you to the staff of the European Parliament, because here you are in the European Hemicycle, where we vote and debate with the Commission and the Council and all of the European political authorities. So for all these reasons, and also for this very lively debate, thank you to all of those who have worked with us over the past 4 years. And often we forget them, but I'd like to thank them for the work that they do in terms of helping the MEPs, the Council, the Commission, the Parliament, and it's also thanks to those who support us. So I'd like to give them a round of applause too. I'd like to draw some very quick conclusions. First of all, I think that Europe has everything it needs to be a geopolitical power in the world. We saw that with the debates that we had with the 27 member nationalities. There are differences, there are different histories, but at the end of the day, we have one shared goal, which is taking our continent's destiny in our hands. And it is European unity, which is a goal in and of itself for the coming years. I think we already have an agreement on principle amongst us, an agreement to do better and to do more, and probably to do things differently given the rise of populists and nationalists in a number of countries. I'd like to conclude by sharing a conviction. We paid homage to Jacques Delors last week. Yes, we can applaud him. We paid homage to Jacques Delors last week. He helped to make Europe. It's thanks to him that we have one currency, we have one market. It's thanks to him we have Erasmus. There are many students here, former students here, who have been able to benefit from that. And in that spirit, I'd like to wager that this great step forward will be sovereign Europe, with perhaps international subjects in the coming legislative term. Europe needs to speak with one voice, as we said. We need to imagine what tomorrow's great project will be here in Renew Europe. What is the Euro of tomorrow? What is the Erasmus of tomorrow? What is the great project for this generation? I think it's a positive and inspirational message. And all afternoon I heard ideas that responded to that need. So, perhaps the only political message before we all go into the campaign. Thierry, I'm sorry, I can't talk about campaign here because we're in the Hemicycle. We'll talk about it in the meetings and the big events that you will all organize in your respective countries. But as I say, we need to find the boldness. That is a matter of inspiration for our fellow citizens. And I'm sure that it is our political family from here, from Renew Europe, that we will be able to contribute to giving the European Union a great new project. So thank you once again. I'll see you all very soon in the European capitals. For those who are going on campaign, have a good campaign. I hope there will be many of you back here. If I had as many MEPs as the number of people here, we'd probably have the majority ourselves. It's not for the democracy. We'd like to see that part of the Hemicycle to be as full as possible. That is the wish that I'm trying to share with you for your campaigns. I hope that you will fill up this Hemicycle, because this term is a good term and Europe is worth hoping in and building. So thank you very much.